Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun runs north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Yeah, Dudley's texting me. He's like, "Oh, I don't know if I showed you." I sent him a whole bunch of like UFC shit for a shadow box. I'm like, "You never showed me it finished." He finally. It was like 2 years ago.
What happened?
I sent him a fight kit for.
What's a fight kit?
So shorts, jacket.
Did you wash them?
I did. Yeah. I actually had.
It's not even very authentic if you wash them.
Gloves. Yeah, and like I finally got a photo of what it looks like.
He just got it done?
No, he's had it done for a while. It's where I rank. It's okay.
Speaking of Dudley, why did you shoot his door?
Because
this might be the origin story of this podcast.
It probably is, yeah. Well, so I showed up at his house. I had literally shot the silverback 3 times, like 3 shots.
Go back in time even farther. How did you meet Dudley?
How did I meet Dudley? I was building two of my bows and my wife's bow. And I was like, all right, well, how the hell do I put on a fucking D-loop and, that is a legitimate question. Knocking points and stuff like that. So so I went, on YouTube and it's like, hey, here's John Dudley. And that was like maybe early 2016. Because I think I got my wife her bow Christmas of 2015, and I'm walking out to the octagon at UFC 200, and I see that big goofy son of a bitch, and I was like, oh my god, I know him. That's that. I know that guy. So I go out. I fought Takanori Gomi, TKO'd him in about 2 minutes, and I like jumped on the cage, and I was like, hey, let's go shoot something sometime. I didn't know that it was going to be his door a few months later. So he hit me up on Twitter a couple weeks later, and we talked on the phone a bit, and I met him. I went to the ATA that following January, and and then met him like in person there, and then we went on a pig hunt. Like right before I fought Dustin Poirier, like right before. Some people would think it would be a bad idea, but at that point, all the work is kind of done. I was having a really rough camp for that one. I was pretty banged up, so having like 5-6 days off of training, I
probably saved your life.
It kind of saved the fight, I think, because at that point nothing really good can happen. So. If I had continued to train the way that I was, I might have gotten sick or might have gotten hurt. So, and I'm kind of one of those guys that's like, I need to be me. I need to do the shit that I like to do in order to perform the best. Like my brain works better if I'm doing stuff that I enjoy, which is like killing shit and making shit and tinkering. So yeah, I went on the trip with him and I got into Iowa. And he's like, all right, let's grab a drink and grab your bow. So like we start shooting in his basement. And when I say start shooting, like I'd gotten the silverback. I think I'd gotten the knock to it like right after I met him, or a minute after I'd seen him.
After you called him out in the cage.
Yeah. He actually sent that one to me. I didn't have to, create an alias to order shit from him, support him.
That comes later.
Yeah, it comes later. I look at like the wing of the school of knock, and it's like, I paid for that. Bought a lot of fucking arrows under Mike Honcho. So I'd gotten the knock to it, or the silverback rather, and I had shot it like 3 times with the current bow that I had, and I did not like it at all. So I put it away and showed up there in Iowa.
What did you not like about it? So hold on, for people listening, a silverback is a handheld archery release that has a safety that you hold while you draw. You anchor, go through your shot sequence, you release the safety, and then it's attention fired, meaning you just continuously pull back, and you don't actually know when it's going to go off.
Yeah.
What did you not like about that?
Well, I think it was a matter of me being a shitty archer at the time. Like when I was shooting, like before I met Dudley, I could hit like a big block target at 60. Most of the time, I could keep 6 arrows on the target.
You're talking like a hay bale?
Just about like one of the like 3 foot by 3 foot targets. And after a little bit of coaching, it was like, and I'm grouping and banging arrows together at 60. So there was the fact that I sucked, and then like the bow that I had at the time was very like jumpy, like
early tech, if you will.
Well,
in comparison to what we have now.
Yeah. And it felt like it was just going to jump out of your hands, even if the valley was so small in it. It's like one of those speed bows. Looking for that extra FPS, bro. So I could shoot through a whitetail at 20 yards.
Yeah, sacrifice everything for some extra feet per second.
Exactly. So I would draw it back, and I'd take my thumb off the safety, and that motherfucker would go. Yep. So I was like, yeah, we'll put this down, and we'll come to this later. So I go to Iowa. He gives me a Hoyt, a much better bow.
Yeah.
Like even in like the individual brands,
it was a generational upgrade.
Yes, definitely. It was like going from a Peugeot wagon to a Porsche, I shot a couple shots, and I had been working on it like leading up to it, like trying to get my shot process. Like he'd coached me through videos and stuff like that, and I drew back. This is like the 4th shot that while I'm there, maybe 5th shot. So we're under 10 reps with the silverback.
And are you just standing by the base of his stairs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this shot is at maximum 7 yards.
Yep. And he goes, "Oh, that's a shitty one. Let it down." I had never let that fucking thing. I'd never the idea of letting a shot down had never come, really crossed my mind with any other. I'd shot a wrist strap and I had used the thumb, a thumb fire release before too, and been using the knock to it. But I let a shot down. Like if I draw back, I'm letting fly. So immediately I start relaxing, and then he starts yelling "safety, safety, safety," and then it's just mayhem in my brain. Like, what is he talking about? I'm like, and I got out of the valley before my thumb got on the safety and right into his wall.
God, it must have been such a glorious, just hollow core door. Just whap.
Wow. Live on Facebook too. It was
he has versions on his phone that are slowed down to different, like 1/8 speed, 1/6. I think the 1/8 is about the best. Because it goes and you look at and
then I go, and then I flinch into it, I'm like, like as it's going off, I kind of jerked into it. It was, So I've learned a lot about archery and shooting a back tension release. I'm still, I've got it too smooth, and I'm still afraid of it.
That's one of the few things that he has produced that I can't bring myself to buy.
Yeah,
because I've watched him shoot it. And when he describes to me the mechanism of how you make it fire and what you have to do to make it not fire as you're drawing so you don't lose your teeth, it doesn't make sense. So I just I'll stick with this one that I hold on in my hand.
Yeah.
And then having said that, I've watched him shoot tack courses with that thing. I've watched him go hunting with that thing. It doesn't make I know it rotates and it makes this click and then it's going to fire. No.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
I'm not I've got arthritic hands and wrists at this point.
Shocker.
So trying to draw and kind of torque my wrist a little bit to the thumb side to make sure that it doesn't fucking go off and I punch myself in the face. Maybe one day we'll get to it. I
don't think so.
Yeah, we'll see.
What I enjoy about Dud is his collection of, I was going to say archery mistakes, but I'm going to call them archery learning moments that he has throughout his property. I have a buddy, Jack Carr, the author. When we come back to the house tonight, I'll show you his arrow that's in the tree. First shot out, target was at 20. His bow was at 60. He's just sitting there. It was made by Dud too. He's just just sails. He pulled on that thing maybe like once or twice. I'm going to say for 15 minutes. He just didn't have the strength in any portion of his body to get it out of the tree.
Yeah.
Is what I think. And but then there's Dud's house.
Yeah.
You got one there, Mr.
Yeah,
Mendez. Not that you listen to the podcast, but
he's got one.
A buddy of mine, who shall remain nameless, but his name might be Jason, has one in the roof from the apex of the roof from, maybe sky drawing and not understanding the safety as well.
Yeah. I mean, not that it makes it any better that I shot his door, but he shot his door too. So
I didn't hear that part of the story.
Yeah, there's another hole in that door. But his wasn't live. So
Then it didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't.
Were you there when it happened?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah, that was like probably a while ago, and it disappeared from the knock-on archives because as it should, like
at the house I had before the one I live in, there was a basement, and in the wintertime here, obviously it gets a little bit cold, so I figured I could just take one of those bag targets and put it next to the TV, and if I went early in the morning and like put some chairs up against the stairs that people would potentially come down at while I'm at full draw and stood in the bathtub, I could get 18 yards.
Yeah.
I thought the bag would stop it. Sent one arrow. I'm like, that sounded a little bit harder than a bag.
Oof.
And it was about 2 inches into the drywall.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So I just moved everything and moved a picture over there and carried it over.
Listen, there have been a few more than I, like, because they didn't happen live and they weren't shared or videoed. Like, yeah, I blew up a wine bottle in my basement. I did the same thing with having my sight set too high and punched a hole through my metal door going into my garage, shooting it at feet, not even yards, right? like 12 feet.
Yeah.
And
when you watch somebody draw back and they have like a 20-yard shot, but you can see that their dial's on 80, do you say anything?
It depends on if they're in my house or at
outside
my house.
At just a normal target. Would you say anything?
Oh, no.
Yeah, 100% not. Even more than that, I'm just like,
yeah. If it's like my kid or my wife and I like paid for the arrows, then
I would say something.
Yeah.
If there's no risk to anybody but a high potential of my entertainment, I'm not saying. I might actually
pull the phone out.
Yeah, just be like, hold on a sec.
This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, fuck. Archery is so fun but so frustrating. I found it through Rogan of all things. Rogan is the one who connected me with Dudley. Dudley and I think we've told this story. We had to meet twice because we were so drunk the first time that we barely.
Sounds about right.
We were with Joe. We were in Vegas. It was at SHOT years ago. And I got a bow before I knew Dudley because I had been on Joe's show and he talks about archery like it's the best thing ever. And I finally texted him, and I'm pretty sure the exact text was, is archery as cool as you describe it, or is this just two dudes jerking each other off in a tree stand? He's like, no, man, it's awesome. And so there's Bob Fromm has an awesome archery shop in San Diego right by Miramar, Performance Archery. And went in there, I'm just like, I need all the things. And then I think I just bought like probably close to $5,000 worth of Sitka. About a week later, found out that John Barklow works for Sitka. You know how I found out fucking Barklow works for Sitka? I was on their website trying to figure out their product, and his face pops up on a video, and I was like,
I know that motherfucker.
yeah, and it had his email. And so I was like clicking on like, hey, fuckface was the subject line. And then we reconnected after like 20 years because Dudley took me to the ATA as well, which is the awesome archery trade show of America, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I was shooting a wrist strap in my backyard, put far too many arrows in our neighbor's yard in a subdivision of East Lake, California that expressly prohibited shooting projectiles of any kind. And we had just moved to Montana, and I had got a silverback because, again, Joe was talking about silverbacks. So I'm like, well, obviously this is the jam. Yeah. Go to Vegas. I was at SHOT Show doing something with one of the industry partners. I forget what Joe was there. But, he was there because he was with Cam. They were doing a podcast at the UA booth. And I'm like shooting craps at Caesars. And Joe walked by. I'm like, what's up, fucker? He's like, oh, dude, let's go to dinner. So I'm like, all right. Sitting at dinner with, I think it was the Under Armour crew. To this day, I feel like they hate me because I will take responsibility for the quality and quantity of the drinks that we were ordering, and there was a lot.
Yeah.
So Dudley comes down, and he had been at some other party, but I mean, apparently we met each other that night and then got reconnected later on. But he is, I say this every time I talk about him, the most generous person on the face of the planet with his time and his knowledge. And I watched him at the most recent tack where Leah, my fiance, is letting down her bow. And I didn't realize that it was actually that angular specific on letting down, because I think as it was coming down, she either just pulled it in, you know what I mean? She just off-centered it, and holy,
it doesn't take much. Yeah.
It didn't, and the cable jumped over, and I've heard that happen. I've never watched it, and I was like, oh shit, that might be broken. But I know where a guy is who can probably fix this. So we got on the thing and went down, and I watched him, guys shooting different bows. Like, he didn't care like what their shirt and hat was or that stuff. He's like, yeah, do this, moving peeps around, retying stuff. He fixed Leah's bow in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
With dental floss, a lighter, and a T-shirt that he would put over his head so he could make sure he was burning it properly. Goes out to the range, shoots it into the dead center of a 50-cent piece sticker, and is like, here you go. Yeah. Like, fuck, man. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best.
I was there one year previously, and I don't remember why, but he was standing in the back of a sled. It was like a team evolution, and somebody was pulling him along as he was shooting clay pigeons. And he's still hitting them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it's been a journey.
The things I've seen him do with the bow, like in his backyard, it's like just...
Yeah, it disgusts me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
That level of mastery it's rare to be around. But and he was my first time I ever went hunting I got a very crash course in bow hunting. And he just like get in my hip pocket. I'm like, yeah, roger that. Which I don't know if you've ever walked a long distance with him.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm a lot shorter than you. Like,
you're not a lot shorter than me. You're a little shorter than me. You're average height for a woman.
Yeah, thanks you.
Yeah,
but I've had to run behind him. Yeah.
It's terrible.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. And seeing him move, like when we went on that pig hunt, like he's like sprinting.
Oh, and he doesn't tell you. He just goes. There's a dust. He's just like, come on.
It looks like a cartoon, like the cartoon character, where there's just these giant long legs, and it's like, how the hell is he covering ground so fast?
Dude, my first hunting trip with him was in Canada, and he's clearing deadfall that's like up to my hip joint in a normal stride. After that first day, I thought my hip flexors had just detonated, because I'm sitting there like full on like leg coming up and over, and he's just like dunk dunk dunk. Yeah, it was had more fireball that trip than I've ever had in my entire life. It was good. Archery's been awesome. It is. I think it's similar to jiu-jitsu for me. I love it because it's so challenging, and I don't think you could ever master it.
Yeah.
And it just takes one moment of like, I am so good at this.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. There goes the door, or there goes your elbow.
Yeah. Or a nice bruise on your arm, or yeah, it sucks when you're hucking $20 bills downrange. Yeah. UFC. So are you the oldest fighter in the UFC, or did I make that up this morning on the social media post?
You made that up. Yeah, you made that up. It's all right. It's as Indiana Jones said, it's not the years, it's the miles.
Yeah.
There are actually quite a few guys who are a bit older than me. There are guys in my division that are older than me. It's just I've been around a lot fucking longer than most of them.
What do you equate that to?
Luck, dumb luck. The only bone that I've ever broken is I chipped my sinus.
Being on the receiving end of something?
Yeah. No, that's that. I got kneed in the face. And I knock on wood, never had a surgery. So like I was kind of made for this shit, I think.
Well, I mean, you're at 40 fights right now, right?
40 will be the next one. Yeah. In the UFC. Yeah.
And where does that rank amongst other UFC fighters?
I've got the record at 39.
Okay. So now at this point you're just building on it. Who's the next closest?
Donald Cerrone is, I think, two behind me.
Is he still fighting, or is he on a little bit of a hiatus?
He's fighting Joe Lauzon, I think, in May.
Okay.
He's had a tough run the last couple fights.
Yeah.
You know, and it sucks. It's tough because it's like I don't want to look at the day where I'm like, hey, I'm not fighting anymore. You know, like it's going to be hard. But I'm also the type like once I decide something, I kind of just go to it. You know.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, you know, say anything about what he should do. You know, I know that he's had talks with Dana about, you know, possibly this being his last one and stuff like that. And, you know, it's a tough game because you get to a point where damage starts to happen, and he's got young kids and he's doing other shit. Like, you know, like he's in movies and he's got, you know,
he does some like cowboy shit.
Yeah. It's like racing, like off-road shit, you know, razors and shit like that. The side-by-sides. You know, he's doing a lot of cool shit. And I'm sure there's that, I know that there's that voice in him that's like, I fucking love to fight. I know that I can compete with anybody in the world. It's just like, as you get older, because he's a little bit older than me.
How old are you?
38. I think he's maybe like 8 months older than me. I think he might have just turned 39, something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, is the juice worth the squeeze? It's like, you know, I know that I can compete with anybody in the world too. It's like on it, you know, it's just a given night. I have a lot more bad days at 38 than I did at 28, you know,
as we all do.
I mean, yeah. So, and when you're like going into the gym and fucking beating the shit out of each other, like you notice it a lot more. It's very easy to say like, hey, today's a bad day, you know, like, and that's one of the fucking hardest things about the sport is that like, you don't want to be the guy that like, I don't really feel like sparring today. Right. Like that's the hardest part is controlling your ego.
Yeah.
And like, I think one of the worst things about MMA is these like giant camps, right? Like, so you have this just stable of bad motherfuckers, and you know, you might be at the top, but that's on a good day. And like, you've got these guys below you that, I mean, some of them know the game and like, hey, you know, I'm here to be a training partner, or I'm here to get my work in. He's helping me, and like, we have a respectful thing. And but then sometimes it's like, hey, I want to try to make a fucking name.
I want
for
my
myself.
day in the sun.
Yeah, and it's like, it's stupid because nobody's gonna see it, pal. Like, but you still have to deal with it. And
is that a common trajectory for a fighter though? If as you're coming up, before you are the person under the lights, you're helping other people as you're gaining experience, kind of train for their fights?
Kind of, sort of, right? Like a lot of the ways that it works is like I try to get my guys like, hey, you come up into the classes, and then like once you get to the point where you can come to like pro grappling, so we're just grappling with strikes, like, all right, you know, and like me as, you know, the guy on the mat, right? Like if it's my training session, I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm not hurting anybody, but like I'm also protecting myself.
You're prioritizing your training.
Yeah,
as you should.
Exactly. You know, so that's what makes it really hard, because like in boxing, you have a lot of these really small groups, and it's like you've got a couple trainers, and you bring in and you pay sparring partners to come in. Where MMA, everybody's kind of training for their own shit. So like, to ask a guy that's, you know, a month out of a fight, hey, can you stand southpaw for me? And, you know, my guy doesn't keep his hands up that often. Can you drop your hands for me? Like, it's hard. I think, like, I came from a decent sized camp. It wasn't like anywhere near some of the big ones, but we had a really good stable of guys. We didn't have a lot of injuries. We trained really well. I think we had 6 guys in the UFC at one time. You know, and New Jersey, like, it's for whatever fucking reason, like, there's a decent amount of good fighters that come out of it.
Is that because people are just so angry living there?
Yeah, like, it's just, you know, everybody's pissed off. Like, you know, it's like
what else are we going to do? Beat the shit out of each other. That's what.
Like, I've got the highest chance of getting pancreatic cancer in the fucking country. Like, fuck. I'm going to take it out on somebody. For whatever reason, right? Like, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's a toughness thing because they're fucking tough motherfuckers everywhere. But like New Jersey always does well in wrestling too. But we had its great core guys. But the issue that we had is we never really used each other the best way, right? Like if I had I had a college, All-American. It's like, well, why am I, going sparring hard with him all the time? Like, I should just be fucking wrestling this guy. Like, if I'm fighting a wrestler or I'm trying to get my wrestling better, I should be focusing on wrestling with him, and like, oh, well, I've got, I'm fighting a tall, lanky lefty. Like when I was fighting Nate Diaz, I had some guys that could mimic, stand lefty. Like my brother could stand lefty, about the same height. I think 6'1" is Nate. Dan's 6'1". Dan can stand lefty, throw punches. It's like, no, you're just gonna go with these other guys who are lefties. But it's like I had a karate guy who was my height, and then I had a 205 pounder who was not a very good striker. And it's like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like this, like it doesn't make any sense. And like that was the toughest part about it, is that we didn't utilize everybody's skill set, because like you get this pool and size and shapes and talents, and like it should really be about using it the best way you can, and not just, hey, smash each other together, right? Like everybody always says the iron sharpens iron thing. And it's like, well, you're not going to take your fucking knife and smash it against your tomahawk to get them ready to use in fucking battle.
I was going to say, like, iron can sharpen iron, but it also can make it really, really dull if you apply it improperly at the wrong angles.
Yeah. So like the way that I look at it is like, okay, well, you need to use them to like hone your skills, right? Like get a little cheesy with it. And like, I mean, a good coach, a good trainer is going to help you, really hone those skills, but like they're usually not the best like live partner. So like when you get to that level where you're like the wrestling coach or the jiu-jitsu coach or the striking coach, like you're not sparring hard with that guy, because usually they're a little bit older.
Yeah,
they've been through the fucking shit. So like it's like ceramic stone. Like it's hard as shit, but it's a little bit fragile too.
Yeah,
you bang it up a little bit, it's gonna break.
Yeah.
So like I moved to a smaller, a bigger gym but smaller team. In 2014, opened up my own place, and kind of like tried to tighten things up a little bit. It's still difficult. It's still really hard to like use everybody, like me as the UFC fighter, I've got a bunch of, pro fighters. I've got some really talented guys that could make it to the next level. But it's a very tight group, and like they all want me to do well, and I want them to do well, and I'll go in and try to be the best training partner I can. Like if they're gearing up for a fight, it's like, hey man, like I'm going to do what you need me to do. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I'm not going to let you give me fucking brain damage, but like I'm going to do what you need me to do. If you notice somebody's fucking gassed out and it's like it's there around, well, I'm going to let you work. I'm not going to be the guy that like takes advantage of it and like beats the shit out of them, and like, cuz you don't get paid if you don't get to the fight. So like you got to be a good partner, and you got to fucking be smart with it. And like I think I was the tangent that I just went off on. I think I was talking about like honing it or pulling it back, right?
Yeah.
Like those bad days, you've got to be able to like tone it down and say like, okay, well, I'm not doing, I'm not rolling for an hour today. I'm going to get like 5 rounds in or whatever. I'm going to listen to my body. And as I've gotten older, it's a lot easier to do that.
Yeah.
Like I consider myself pretty coachable. And like, if a coach says to do something, I do it. But that coach has to also be able to read me and be like, hey, today's not the day. Like, it's supposed to be the hard day.
Yeah.
But today's not the day. So, that, like, it's a tough fucking thing when like, you've got like everybody trying to kill each other. And
seems like a very delicate ecosystem that you have to kind of balance, and a lot of things to balance, whether it's rest and recovery, little ego, perhaps.
Yeah. It's got to be there.
With a lot, yeah. I wouldn't imagine nobody's going to get to the apex of anything without having a little bit of an ego.
Yeah.
Ego's not a bad thing. It's when ego gets out of control that it's a bad thing. When you were growing up, did you want to be a fighter? Or,
Of course.
I mean, people may not know your wrestling background, which is ridiculous and disgusting.
Nah, not really.
But I mean, there's plenty of wrestlers that never go and actually start striking each other.
Yeah.
Before we even get into that, damn it, I said we were going to open with talking about wrestling and we didn't. Okay. Please explain to me how somebody wins a wrestling match.
All right.
Because like I have described, I watch it on YouTube, and at some point in time, somebody jumps up and they have their hands in the air, and I can't figure out. I mean, to a degree, I'm like, obviously you're trying to wrestle, but where are the points? How do you win?
Okay. Now we need to go into what type of wrestling. There's collegiate wrestling, scholastic wrestling, which is, what they do in college.
Okay.
Right. And then there's what's in the Olympics, which you have freestyle wrestling, and you've got Greco-Roman.
What are they doing in like high school?
High school is scholastic and collegiate. So the scoring is a little bit different, right? So if you start on your feet, you take somebody down, you get control of them, you get two points for takedown.
Do they establish control based off of the amount of time you can, like, you got to hold it for a second or two?
Not really. It's like basically getting behind someone.
Okay. So you're working to their back.
Yeah. So if you get to that position, you get your 2 back points. In college, they have riding time. So once you take somebody down, a clock starts going, and it'll go, it goes forward and reverse. And if you have over a minute of riding time, you get 1 point at the end of the match.
Okay.
If you turn somebody to their back, the ref's going to start counting. Once they get to 2, you get 2 points. And then they're going to go 3, 4, 5. They get to 5, and it's 3 points. For a time there, I think, and maybe like New Jersey kind of screwed some shit up. They were giving 4 back points if they got to 6, which it really didn't seem like it did anything to me. But typically it's once they get to 2 points, once they get to 5, 3 back points. And that's just for back exposure. So like you get to 90, and if you're in like a pinning move and you start to lean somebody and they start to expose the back, then the ref's going to start counting. If you escape, if somebody's on your back and you stand up and you turn and you break away and you break contact, then you're going to get 1 point escape. If you reverse somebody, you get 2 points.
So it's a points game.
It's a points game, and then there's the pins, right? So when it comes to points, it's 8 points. If you win by 8 points or more, it's a major decision. If you at any point get to 15 points ahead of somebody, it's called a technical fall, and the match stops right there. And then
also known as the mercy rule.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. In freestyle, it's 10 points for the mercy rule. And then if you pin somebody, which is basically just controlling them to their back and putting both shoulder blades to the mat, then ref slaps the mat.
How many rounds could a match potentially go?
It's 3 rounds with overtimes. So you'll have the first overtime will be like a minute from your feet, first points win, and then they'll go to the second overtime, and it'll be like flip of a coin, person down, gets to pick, and then like either the person that rides it out wins, or if the person that picks down, they get out, they win.
Yeah. How long are the rounds, the first 3?
In college, it's 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
I feel like that's a lot of high intensity.
Oh, it's the fucking worst thing ever. It's like, for me, it was always the best. Like, because it's a short 7-minute sprint.
But short periods of time like that. Oh, yeah. Like I'm sure you've done this. You put 10 minutes on a clock for a jiu-jitsu round, very casual pace.
Yeah.
If you put 2 minutes on the clock, it's a wood chipper.
It's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing with like striking. Like I watch like the kickboxing, and it's like 3 threes. It's like it's vacation rounds. Is what I tell my Thai coach, and it's like, I mean, the guys that are fighting in, like, if you're fighting a 5-minute round, you go at a different pace than you go at a 3-minute round. A 3-minute round, it's like,
you have to.
Fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like 7 minutes it's a long time.
How long in between rounds?
As short as it takes.
Man, so they can just reset and go.
Yeah. And that's kind of, that was always my technique. Was I was usually the better conditioned athlete. So I was the one, like, we go out of bounds, I'm running back to to the center of that mat and making everybody in the fucking room wait on you to stroll your ass back,
Yeah.
and like in between rounds, I'm picking, whatever, and I'm going right to it, just to keep pushing the pace and getting somebody's head.
Yeah, just keep that consistent pressure.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the. I told you I was going to talk about, like, this might get me in trouble talking about Dan Gable.
So I'm not incredibly familiar. Well, obviously, I'm not familiar with wrestling at all if I don't understand the points.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Mr. Gable is a legendary figure in American wrestling.
Yeah, like the legend, right? He went. I don't know what his record was in college, but the only time he ever lost in college was in the finals. His senior year, lost to a sophomore, I think. I love him. I love the attitude. I do. And then he got into coaching, and I feel like the thing is not everybody is capable of that. Like there's a vast majority of different like kinds of wrestlers. There are guys that are going out there just to score points and win by 1 point, which I can't knock on.
Mm-hmm.
You're
talking about different types of strategies.
Strategies and what you're kind of doing. My game was always, I want to pin you as fast as I can. Like, and if I tech fault somebody, I was pissed because that means I turned them to their back and I didn't pin them. Like, that's like having somebody in the choke and them getting out. Like, fuck that. I want to assert my dominance. See, there's the ego. Like, I want to assert my fucking dominance over somebody. So, like, Gable, again, all the wrestlers out there, I love the guy. But like I don't know if it was his coaching style or if it was wrestlers trying to be him that couldn't be him. I feel like it created a bit of a toxic atmosphere and like a resentment, because I ended up wrestling for one of Gable's guys. One of the coaches that Gable. Yeah, one of his first. Okay. One of his first guys that ended up being a 2-time runner-up in nationals. And at 50-something years old, that asshole still fucking hated himself for it. And he took it out on us. What do you mean? Just, he was a prick. He was a fucking prick. His personality was that of an asshole. Yeah, and I mean, even out of the gym setting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, there are a lot of wrestling coaches that are assholes, and I feel like it's kind of because of something. It has something to do with that. But then you've got Cale Sanderson on the opposite side, who coaches for Penn State now. Was the winning? He went undefeated in college. The Penn State room, it's fun. They train hard. They wrestle hard, and they have fun. And they're fucking around. They're playing dodgeball. They're doing this shit. They're doing that shit. And these student athletes are enjoying their time. I wrestled at Virginia Tech for 1 year, and I learned a lot because I went from a room of in high school and I wrestled some good guys in club wrestling and stuff like that. But my high school team, there were some good guys, but they really wouldn't wrestle me at practice because I beat them, and they couldn't handle it. And then I went to a room that was full of state, 4-time state champs here. Just and this killers. And that. Yeah, and it was I got so much better so quickly. And then I did learn a few things from my coaches, but they were pricks, and I had an opportunity to, as a walk-on freshman, to make nationals, and I got thumped on my head, got a little bit of a concussion, and I just needed a little support. I needed a coach, and they're out at the bar hanging out, and I'm sitting there in the room all by myself trying to cut weight so I could fucking make weight the next morning. Wobbling on the bike, and it's trainer walks in and looks at me, he's like, "Yeah, just get the fuck out of here, you're done." And I had a path. I had a path that I could have made it if I had somebody that I call a coach. And it sucks. It sucks that that's kind of the way that it is. yeah, there's just this. I don't know. There's just a lot of pricks, and I don't know what. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's trying to live up to that that mentality. Because I mean, Gable is a psychopath. You have to fucking realize that he's a fucking psychopath. Because his idea was to wrestle as hard as he could until he fucking collapsed. Like that's what he wanted. He wanted to wrestle so hard and get pushed so hard that he would fucking pass out. And I love that. I fucking love it. Like, like I feel like I've been on the verge of that a few times in fights. Like I've had I've had to be picked up by my brother at the end of a fight. I fucking practically like laid down. Oh, I did lay down on Joe Lauzon the first time we fought. Like I've pushed myself to the point where I've been, puking in the shower and have the doctors in commission looking at me. I'm like fetaled up in the shower, naked, puking my brains out. I've like.
It's not a good look, Jim.
It's not a good look. It's not a good look, but it means that I went as hard as I could go, right?
Yeah.
And the way that I look at it is like, if I'm going to sacrifice my time, my body, my time away from my family, I'm going to give everything I got in there. But the thing about me, like, I don't ask any of my fighters to fight like me. Like, I will not ask. Like, be smart, be like, because I'm not a technical guy. It's all about the basics and doing them at a pace that most people can't keep up with. Like that's what I do. That's the Jim Miller blueprint. And
I call that the fullback dive.
Like literally, yeah. Just hammer
center.
it. Yeah, just hammer it. Right. And it's worked. It worked in most cases. It's failed me a few times. But like I don't want my guys to to have to do that shit. Like,
well, what worked for you may not work for other people.
Exactly.
Yeah. I hate broad applications. Like this works for everyone. It's like, I don't think so.
And
which is similar to that kind of like chip on the shoulder asshole coach. That actually really might motivate some people, but it's incredibly off-putting to others, and they probably would lose a lot of high-level athletes because of that.
I mean, that's the thing too. Is like you look at what wrestling is, and like you get to that point, that college wrestling point, right? And that's what the kind of asshole coaches I'm talking about. It's like high school, they're a lot better, but it's just like there is no, like, you've got a kid there that's there potentially on scholarship, and you've got somebody that's like not there to help them. Is kind of just being an asshole because he might have a chip on his shoulder or this or that.
Position of power too.
Yeah, and like you're just driving this shit home, and like it's not like a selection or something like where like, oh, you've got this massive group and you can weed them out, and that's what you're looking to do.
You know what though? Even in the selection world, the asshole that yells is the easiest to tune out.
Yeah,
it's the quieter. Casual, get in your head and scramble some fucking eggs, dude, that you have to worry about. That's actually so much more effective than yelling at somebody.
But like, who teaches you better, right?
The quieter guy.
Yeah, and is that should be the goal, right? You've got these.
Well, the goal
kids.
should be a multi-tool. Yeah, because you're probably gonna, if you have 12 kids to coach, you're probably gonna need 3 or 4 different coaching styles. Because if you go with just one, you'll have a bell curve, right, and you'll lose, both ends of those. But I don't know. There's a role for a hammer, but there's also truth to, if you live your life as a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It's
true.
So I don't know.
I remember
I got more people to quit by being quiet than being loud.
Settle you guys.
You just talk to them, and just invade their thoughts, and turn them on themselves.
But like that's the thing though, is like you don't have this pool of 60 guys or whatever. You've got like 20, and you need a lineup. So like the goal shouldn't be necessarily weeding them out. Yeah, it should be making them all better.
I would assume in a college team, if they're even going to get on the college team, the weeding out has probably occurred. Then you got to sharpen the blade and actually develop your team. Yeah. At some point and this was something that you would see, or that I saw when I was a BUDS instructor, is there's like these classic archetypes of like the yeller, and The way that I approached it was, at some point in training, we should probably realize that these young kids, which is what most of them are, will be working with us in the future if you leave your instructor role and go back to one of the operational teams.
Yeah.
So, yes, we'll hold them to a high standard, the same standard that we got held to. Yes, we will fuck with them mercilessly, even when they do things that are correct. But we need to also teach and coach them because they are the future.
Yeah.
And like, let's also not forget that we went through this program and like, we think we're pretty awesome. So maybe the program works and maybe we can pass that forward a little bit.
And that's what I think ended up happening is like you had like Gable with his, and it might not be his coaching style. I don't even know if it's coaching style, right? It might have just been.
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Okay.
It might have just been that like the guys that wrestled underneath him wanted to accomplish the same things that he accomplished, and like they just felt that pressure, but it kind of seemed like it had this like trickle down, and now it's like, hey, my coach was an asshole, so I need to be an asshole.
Was Gable an effective coach?
Yeah, he was.
And I asked that because if that was his coaching style, it's very easy to see how people would want to emulate that and think that that's the answer.
Yeah.
When in reality, it could have been a combination of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's coaching is a privilege. Mm-hmm. It should be treated as such. Do you even remember when you got into wrestling, or did you just have singlets since you were born?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because your wrestling is disgusting.
No, it's not.
It's not in like a good way. Well, it is in comparison to my understanding.
In a normal jiu-jitsu class, my wrestling is but like I was like an okay high school wrestler, like better than average, right? Like
Did your brother wrestle too?
Yes, yeah. I have two older brothers. We all wrestled, and all different like styles, right? Like my oldest brother Michael was very technical, but also the least athletic. Dan was a bit, a lot more athletic, but like he never like took it as seriously as I did. It's not like I took it super seriously, but like I did a little bit extra work in conditioning, and I did a little bit extra work in the technical aspects of it. So like we were different wrestlers. But like Michael, I mean, he started wrestling when he was probably 6 or 7, and it's like my dad was there coaching, so I was there at like 3 on the mat, rolling around. Some of my earliest memories are of wrestling, and it's like I was a super late bloomer. Like, puberty hit me like towards the end of high school,
24.
Yeah. So like my biggest weapon had always been my physicality, but I wasn't a physical kid. Like I was strong. I was a strong kid, because I was like working, framing houses with my dad. So you're carrying shit.
Yeah.
And like, we used to just like climb trees and just do little boy shit. So like I was physical and I'm a good hugger. Like you give me a bench press or anything where I have to like push stuff away, I'm not very good at it. But pulling things in, like that's what I was made to do. So like I made a lot of mistakes as a kid coming up, like trying to be the well-rounded wrestler and stuff like that, where like I finally like kind of learned some of that shit as I got older, like, hey, just focus on what you're good at and have a couple different options. But like, as the athlete, the repertoire doesn't have to be that big. As a coach, it does. You want to have an encyclopedia if you're coaching people. But, as a kid, as an athlete, it's like, I need a couple things.
If you could be world class at one or two things.
Yeah. Like, that giant Swiss Army knife that's got all those tools in it, like the thing sucks. Like,
it's mediocre at every task.
Yeah, like less than mediocre. So yeah, I finally, kind of figured that out, and I've had to change the way that I wrestle. I was, like when I started fighting, I would shoot a lot of single legs, being a lefty, fighting a lot of righties. That lead leg was always there. And then I got punched in the face a bunch doing it when I fought a really good wrestler. So I decided to, scrap that. And we never did that again.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you deal with some neck injuries and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't blast double like I used to, but now I do a lot more clinch stuff and foot sweeps and off balances, and it just opens things up. But it's like, I try to be a student when it's time to be a student. And, we were talking about like the different mindsets, and like sometimes I'm in the coaching mindset, and that's, I'm there to help people. Like I'm not trying to prove myself, on the mat, because I know that it doesn't fucking matter. And I get paid a lot of money to do it inside the octagon. So like, that's when I'm proving myself.
Yeah.
And then I've got like when I'm trying to go, when I'm trying to get better, and when I'm trying to get my good rounds in and stuff like that. So, and when I find that I'm at my best, man, it's elevator music up here. It's like, there's really no thought going on. It's all kind of feel. And, like that's when I'm at my most dangerous.
Can you consciously get yourself there?
I can. It's hard. It's really hard. I really try not to do it when I'm sparring, because that's when guys get hurt, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There have been a couple occasions where like somebody goes unconscious, during training, and it's like, what'd you do? And it's like, I don't even know. Like I was in La La Land,
Yeah.
So like when I'm hitting pads, I try to like, I get those first couple rounds in, get my lungs blown out. And then it's like, I try to like kind of really psych myself up, get into the zone. And when my Thai coach starts like throwing stuff at me, then it turns on. And it's easier to do nowadays, which is awesome.
Because you have more of a history of being able to do it, you think? You've taught yourself?
I've taught myself to do it, and I learned that like I'm more dangerous there, right? It's like
you were saying last night, actually, that you would get earlier on in your career, you'd get amped up, and you'd have what you would describe as pretty intense tunnel vision.
Yeah,
and you were less effective.
Yeah. I mean, I still get it to a degree, right? Like, I've had one fight where like I could see outside the cage. And that was when I was like really sick. But like every other fight, like, I mean, when it might be environmental too, right? The house lights go down.
Oh, that's right. It's dark outside of the cage, isn't it?
Yeah. And you can still see, you can, but like my vision goes like on that guy across from me. That's it. And I mean, sometimes I could be like feet from my corner and not hear them. Even the fights at the Apex, my first couple of fights with no crowd, completely bizarre situation, going from like 20,000 people to fighting in front of nobody.
It was cool as somebody who was watching.
Yeah, and you hear everything.
Not only could you hear everything, you could hear the coaching.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't fighting.
Really?
I couldn't. Nope.
Do you ever, like, if you ever end up on the cage by the announcers, do you ever hear like Joe commentating and you just can look over and be like, hey, Joe, shut the fuck up?
I've heard, I heard Michael Bisping the one time.
The One-Eyed Bandit?
Yeah. Yeah. But like, and then some of my earlier fights, I've heard my mom scream. Yeah, the very distinct, you know, mom's scream. I can hear it. But like, other than that, it's like I don't even hear a lot.
You're that locked in.
Yeah, like this last fight was actually kind of different in that I was able to hear my corner throughout the fight. But yeah, it's like everything kind of focuses in. I was getting myself super amped up, but then I wasn't like adapting, and so I lost a couple fights where I was like, man, like why didn't I adjust?
Once you read the terrain.
Yeah. And it's like square peg, round hole, and just hammering it in. Because it worked. It worked, so many times leading up to that. And then it's like, hey, it's not working. And I didn't change. And then it's like, I remember like I came out to a different song in one fight, and I just had this little bit different like mentality. And it was against what the hell fight was that? It was one UFC 162, I think it was, when I fought Fabricio Camo's, fucking 3rd degree black belt at the time, like one of the highest, ranking jiu-jitsu guys to ever fight in the octagon. And it's like, he's fresh and I armbar him, like from my guard, with an entry that I had never trained or drilled before. It just, we got into a position where the armbar was, it's like, hey, my body felt that there was an armbar there, and it's like, I lock it in. And, it's like, oh, that's fucking awesome.
That is awesome. And again, I'm 3 years and change into jiu-jitsu. And I think the odds of me pulling that off on somebody, like I was saying, like people wear black belts, and at some point you're like, I don't fucking care. You have all the stripes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would think that it would be impossible to catch somebody like that because of their experience. I think when you throw punching people in the face into that, it's not that it changes the game. I think it gives you more room to maybe hit things like that. Because if it was purely jiu-jitsu and you guys weren't trying to beat the shit out of each other,
it would have been different.
I think it would have been different because you would have been fully focused on that jiu-jitsu mindset.
100%. I had a shitty rubber guard that I was floundering with. And my coach, we drill it a lot, and it's like it comes out sometimes, but it's one of those things that I should try to set aside during fight time. And I have a tough time doing it sometimes. I've gotten a lot better at it. Like setting it aside, and I've gotten better at the rubber guard. But so I was doing the shitty rubber guard, and he threw a punch, and it opened up the side. It was just right there. And it was just like, my body fell into the arm bar, and it was like, as soon as I threw my legs up, I was like, this thing's mine. Like he can't go in, he can't go out. Like his arm is
just a bear trap.
Yeah. Like, cause there is a point where it gets so deep that it's like, you can't do anything, pal.
Yeah. You're at that place like, well, time to reset.
Yep. Yeah. And so then that was like, holy shit. That was awesome. Like we need to find that mindset, and like flow state, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of words for it.
Yeah. Like it's that relaxed urgency.
Yeah. It's like a heightened sense of awareness. It can be getting amped up can be taken too far.
Yeah.
I've watched it happen, and I've had it happen to me overseas where something incredibly exciting, for the good or bad, will happen. You get tractor beamed into it, and it's just, looking through night vision goggles is like straws anyway.
Yeah.
And then cut that in half. You're really situationally aware. You're just fucking looking straight ahead, and you have to be able to recognize that and then pull it back.
Yeah.
I want to have that heightened sense of awareness, but you can also make really bad decisions if you take that too far.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people have to experience that to understand that, but yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if your plan's not working, you're like, well, I'm just going to try again.
Yeah.
But the more application of pressure.
Yeah, it doesn't,
That makes sense. And it makes sense that you're finding more success with that with the more experience that you have, because I remember the first time I got shot at, I'm like, well, I guess I'll be looking at this 0.001% of the world. So much other shit was going on. And then later on in a career, I worked with some people that I consider to just be absolute legends, and the world could be falling apart around them. They're just like, not that they were actually smoking, but that was kind of like their mentality. One of them did, which I still don't understand. But just cool, calm, and collected. And they were able to work their way through the most complex situations with absolutely lethal consequences. Just no problems whatsoever.
Yeah.
They weren't asleep. They weren't overdoing it. But fuck, man, you get them into that area where it just is like a little bit amped up, and they're like, oh, yeah, making decisions.
Yeah, like I think it's about like clean, consistent repetition.
You have to train,
Like,
I think you have to train to get yourself to that place as often as possible. It's like anything else. You're not going to get any better at driving unless you drive a car.
Yeah.
When did, so you grew up wrestling. When did you start thinking about fighting?
As soon as I saw Bloodsport.
JVD, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, kickboxer, probably some of the Seagal movies.
Fuck that guy. I fucking hate Steven Seagal. That dude eats hot dogs without chewing.
Yeah, he looks like it too.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, like I mean, I grew up on those.
We all did.
The cheesy 80 movies.
Yeah.
And
side note: have you ever watched videos of Steven Seagal running?
Yeah, it's the worst thing ever.
It's the worst.
The most unathletic. There are so many.
There's
actors
something going on with this
that can't run.
Yeah,
I love Harrison Ford. He can't fucking run.
Really?
He runs like a goof. If you've ever seen it, like so was it one of the Star Wars movies? Like running, and it's like it's like why'd they leave that in there? But yeah, I don't know. They're not athletes. They're pretend people, right?
Some of them are probably athletes.
I mean, maybe some of them.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, Kevin Hart. I think
Kevin Hart, I think, would look up to you physiologically.
He would.
Yeah,
he would. Yeah, no. I grew up watching those movies.
But you weren't so you did a year at Virginia Tech. You weren't fighting up until that point, right? It was just wrestling focused.
Yeah, I always kind of wanted to do it. I at least wanted to like learn to strike. And I went to school and like I was way too focused on wrestling and not focused enough on
academics.
Yeah, the engineering program at Virginia Tech, which is very good. And in my downtime, I would watch all the freaking videos, downloading on Kaza and those other LimeWire or whatever the hell the other one was. And like, yeah, every Pride video, every UFC video I could watch, I was watching it. And I was introduced to it at wrestling camp. Going into my 8th grade year, I went with my brothers and the high school team to wrestling camp, and one of the coaches, my coach through high school, he brought like a VHS of UFC 3, maybe, and that was the first time I'd ever seen it.
Were they still wearing gis in that?
They could, yeah, no gloves, like whatever the fuck they wanted, and. Yeah, it was always kind of like in there, like, oh, man, I want to try it. I want to try it. And I took a little time off from school, and my brother and I would just, like, if there was downtime at work, we would just beat the shit out of each other.
What type of work were you doing?
Construction.
Okay. I'm sure your boss loved that.
Yeah, my dad, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he loved it. There was one time that we got into it for whatever reason, and I drop kicked him out of a dumpster. We were fighting in this dumpster that we were just throwing wood scraps in. So it had like a full sheet of like plywood, and we're just wrestling around and stuff like that. And he like hopped up on the edge, and it was just like I saw it, and I like ran across there and just double leg drop kicked him out. It was awesome.
For you,
yeah. He ended up cutting his pinky up. But that's what he gets for giving me the opportunity. Yeah, so like we were watching like every Pride and UFC, and then like we'd go to the local school and like we were playing high pitched softball, and like we'd practice and play a little bit, and then we'd just beat the shit out of each other, and there'd be like like 4 or 5 like 20-year-old, 21-year.
So you're basically just doing Fight Club.
Essentially, yeah, but very public at that point, like just on the side of the road, and like we were just rolling around and choking the shit out of each other. And in 2005, May of 2005, we finally like looked up the nearest place that had an MMA team.
And when you say we, you mean you and Dan?
Yeah, me and my brother, and we're like, fuck it, we got to do it. We got to try. And this was like after the first Ultimate Fighter and stuff like that too, and so it was like really, I remember watching that fight and like being like, shit, man, like I need to do this. So we walk into the gym, train the first day, they're subbing people out first day, and then we were banged the fuck up because neither one of us were in shape, and had to take like a week off. Coach was probably like, those motherfuckers, they're in and out,
one and done.
Yeah, and then it was like every day, like 6 days a week, and then it turned to 7 days a week.
With the express desire, like, hey, we want to fight professionally.
Yeah. Like we walked in and said, like after practice, we're like, we want to fight. And he's like, give me like 2 to 3 years.
Had you been doing any jiu-jitsu at this point, or this was pure?
This was pure
wrestling background.
Wrestling with watching shit and choking each other for fun. So we start training, and this like the gym was like twice as long as this studio, like
which is not big,
just as wide, and twice as long. So it was very small. They had a couple guys that fought, and like we started training, and like. We were training under I think he'd just been promoted to purple. But it was like strictly no-gi. And we did not Grappler's Quest, Naga. And one or two of the guys were fighting that weekend at the Battle of the Beach. And we went in, we did the grappling tournament and did well. And it was like a week
Shocker.
Later. Yeah. Week later, we got a bout agreement on our desk, on the desk. And it's like, hey, you're fighting. And so it was basically 6 months to the day, first day of jiu-jitsu to first professional MMA fight, which is...
So we're going to call that an atypical
progression. Very, very atypical.
How'd the first fight go?
Dan went out. Dan was I think the second fight of the night.
Oh, you guys were fighting on the same card too?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
We did it too many times. He goes out and triangles the kid in like 2 minutes. And I remember, like, leading up to it, I didn't fucking sleep. I'm like, I've been in one fucking street fight, and it was stupid. And like, like once we got our fight, then we started to train striking. So we were taking the cardio kickboxing class with all the ladies. It's actually where I met my wife.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so we were doing a cardio kickboxing class, but like we were so raw that like. It's really all we needed. So we go in. He goes in. He triangles the guy, and I remember being like just like laying an egg. I was so nervous, and I have always every time that Dan would fight, I'd be like, I'm so nervous, and where me fighting, it's like I have the control. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Like I get nervous. I still get butterflies to this day.
Hey, it's your brother though. You're worried about him.
Yeah, it's so much worse. And he triangles the guy, and I remember like we're going back, and he was the second fight. I was the fourth fight. So I'm out there like warming up with him, and then he goes and fights, and I, corner him, and then I got to come back and finish my warm up so that I can fight. I remember like catching myself skipping to the back, and I was like, whoa, fucking man it up, Jim. Like, and it was like all the weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I was like, we can do this shit. And I went out and I was fighting a really good grappler. The kid started training jiu-jitsu when he was like 10. Had won at like 14, was winning adult Nagas and stuff like that. Eddie Fivey, really awesome guy. And it was a 2 4-minute round fight, and I beat him up and controlled him and won the 8-minute battle, and it was like, sign me up again, let's do this shit. And it was just like bang bang bang. Fought 6 times in 1 year and 1 day, and pretty much every one of those it was like Dan and I fighting on the same night. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like. So I fought like that year later, right? I fought Frankie Edgar. That was my 6th fight. And the gym that I was training at closed down like 3 weeks prior, something like that. So, and everybody kind of knew it was happening. So I had like no training partners leading up to that fight. It was pretty pathetic. Learned a valuable lesson. Surround yourself with, people,
for sure,
people that are going to be there for you
and care about your success.
Yeah. So go out, have like, I've still never seen the fight with Frankie. I still remember it pretty well. And like for a few years, people would come up to me and be like, dude, that fight with Frankie was like epic. Cause we were back and forth, like
just banging
it out. Yeah. Like, it was a crazy fight. I kicked him in the ear, so it was like, yeah. So
what a dick.
Yeah. Well, he punched me in the face a lot. So there were no up kicks and no elbows.
Okay.
So he kept like taking me down, and then he's just standing up in my guard, and I really didn't have like enough of an open guard. And at that point, if somebody's striking you too, to not be able to like threaten with an up kick,
there's no reason for them not to bend over at the waist
and punch you.
Yeah,
and that's what he did.
Yeah.
So like I remember,
at least you got to see it coming.
Yeah. So it was almost didn't like. I mean, my eye was like the after that fight, like it was all red and shit like that. You know, the whole bloodshot.
Yeah.
But so third round comes out, and I'm thinking like I need to do something big here. You know, so I just rip a left high kick up there, and he's got crunchy little cauliflower ears, and of course I don't hit him in the chin and I don't hit him in the temple. I hit him right across the cheekbone and the ear, and I ripped his ear open, and a piece of cauliflower, like the
coagulated blood,
shot across the cage and like landed in front of one of the commissioners, and they like scooped it up, and like like his coach at the time I think still has it in formaldehyde. Yeah, it was just a crazy fight. He ends up winning a decision, and we knew that the winner of that was going to get their opportunity at the UFC. But then I was also at a point where like I wasn't ready for the UFC because I didn't have a fucking team at that point. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, you know. That was right before the Ultimate Fighter 5. So that was their first lightweight season. So it was like 3 weeks. So went down, did the tryouts. You know, saw him there, and
were they just having open tryouts at that point?
Yeah. So his ear was as black as your shirt, and my eye was as red as your Yeti cup. Like, so I remember, like I go up, we do like a grappling round, and I choked this kid unconscious, and like go to talk to the guys from Spike, and they're like, what happened to your eye? And I was like, I do this thing called MMA. It's kind of like human cockfighting. I'm like, the fuck do you think happened to my eye? I fought 3 weeks ago. Yeah, it was cool. But then found the the new gym, and got to start training under Jamie Cruz, and you know still kept fighting. And I tell you what, the next fight after that is the most nervous I've ever fucking been for a fight. It was Dan and I were both fighting in this organization. We were both fighting for titles. Like, not that it has anything to do with it, but we were still working at the time. Like, so we're cutting weight. So it's like day before weigh-ins, we had to get a roof, sheathe up the roof and seal up this house, this thing we were doing. So you're like, worked a 14-hour day, like no food, and you're just like,
shit, man.
Like 36 feet up off the ground.
In La La Land.
Yeah. It was exciting. I'm fighting this guy that like had the title, but like he still had a losing record. And I was like, my God, like I just watched Frankie Edgar fight in the UFC and have like the fight of the year with Tyson Griffin. I can't lose to this guy, you know? And like, I'm sitting there in the back, like almost puking. Like it was
nerves.
From nerves. Yeah. I was nervous as hell. 'Cause it was like, I knew that I should beat this guy. And, going from like the level of competition and taking a step down, like I said, even though he was a champ, it was that was hard to deal with. But yeah, like we had a bunch of fights. I think when we signed with the UFC,
both you and Dan signed with the UFC.
The most amazing part of my career is that we sat next to each other and signed our UFC contracts at the same time, which we did not expect that to happen.
What was that like?
It's just fucking cool because we were, he was, what was he? He was 10-1 and I was 11-1. So we knew it was going to happen, but we didn't think that it was going to happen at the same time. So we were kind of both under contract with the IFL, and they could, go fuck themselves. I hate those guys.
I know nothing about them. So.
Yeah.
Is it a feeder league?
They were.
They do not exist anymore?
No, yeah. The UFC ended up buying them out, and we got our, they bought out our contracts and brought us aboard. So I went from fighting 12 fights in New Jersey to my first fight in the UFC being in Birmingham, England, which was, that fucks you up a little bit,
Do they bring you in that day and they're like, gentlemen, we just want to talk to you about something, and then they're like sliding?
Well, they contacted our manager. He had been in contact with them.
Okay.
Because I actually almost got signed before that, probably like 6 months before that, we were going to do a thing. The IFL was they were trying to build out and do a push, and then they breached contract. So then our contracts were null and void. The UFC came calling, and then we're going to file an injunction to keep me from fighting for the UFC. And I was like, fuck you. So I went in, and I fought one of their like top 3 guys and beat the shit out of them. That was my last fight before I got signed with the UFC. And then Dan ended up winning the 85 title. And then a few months later, we got signed. And
how much does your life change at all? You signed that contract. I mean, is there anything that's tangibly different, or?
Well, we were like, we had been working, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and training at night. And it was like, we signed with the UFC, like we have to take this
our
seriously.
Full-time JOB.
Yeah.
Now.
So we told our dad, we're like, listen, like I know this is gonna suck, but like we need to start training during the day. So like we'd help him 1 or 2 days a week, and then we're training during the day.
Well, signing with the UFC, I mean, you get paid when you fight, right?
Yes.
It's not like you like, hey, you guys are now on salary with the UFC.
No, it was a big commitment, to like just fucking throw it all in. Unfortunately it worked out more so for me, I guess. Like Dan had 13 fights in the UFC, and he fought fucking the who's who at 185, Chael Sonnen, Michael Bisping, Damian Maia, Paul Harris, Nate Marquardt, like all in a row too. They did not give him an easy fucking schedule. Especially he was dealing with a bunch of shit, personally. So like it was a tough road for him. But like he was in every fucking one of those fights, and like, like that's one of the tough parts is like, I know what I'm capable of. And like it bugs me if I don't do what I'm capable of, in a fight. I know what my brother is capable of and what he was capable of, and it's like, man, like Dan in the gym is a world champ, and like that's hard. But there are a lot of guys like that. There are guys that show up on fight day, and there are guys that come down a little bit. Mm-hmm. He was always a head case and nervous and. Battled with that. Like,
would you say that's more common?
Probably, yeah.
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 I mean, you guys are doing something that's very exposed
mm-hmm.
under lights with a lot of people watching. There's a lot of pressure involved in that.
Well, if you care what people think, and I don't.
Fair.
Yeah. Like, that's one of like some of the younger guys that train with me, they're like, oh, what if I get knocked out? And everybody's like, what the fuck do you care? Like, you're the one that's taking a leap, putting yourself out there, trying to accomplish something, mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to give you shit if you get knocked out. And I've got the most fights in fucking UFC history. Like, so if somebody that's never trained, like, are you going to take their opinion? Are you going to put weight?
And they would be the one to try to give it to you as well.
Yeah, yeah.
The one with the least amount of experience.
Yeah, like even if it's your uncle or your cousin, like who the fuck cares? Like, I can learn something from anybody. Anybody can teach me a move, and there's a few things in jiu-jitsu that kind of piss me off.
Such as?
Well, like there is this ego that like, hey, lower belts aren't allowed to ask upper belts to roll. Fuck that. Don't be a twat about it and like take 2 rounds off while he's getting hard rounds and then go to pick up,
Matt Shark.
Yeah. Like, no, like, but I want people to come up and want to roll with me. Like, I look at it as a sign of respect, because when I'm in the gym, I want to roll with the best guys in there too.
Yeah.
Like, but like, so anybody can teach me something, but like very few people can tell me how to fight, and like, and I know who their names.
Yeah.
And I know what they've accomplished, right? It's like, I either look at them as like a legend of the sport, or I call them coach, even though they're not my fucking coach. Like, because they've fucking earned it.
Yeah.
By being there for their athletes, you know? So it's like, I don't really, you know, I get shit. People give me shit if I fucking lose or whatever. Sometimes they just want to be a troll on the internet. Like, somebody will give me shit. I don't fucking care. It doesn't matter because the person has zero experience in what I do. And there are very, very few fucking people at this point that have the experience that I have. So it's like, you know, everyone's got an opinion, but they're all worth, you know, they all weigh a little bit different, you know?
100% true. Yeah. What was your first fight like in the UFC?
It was
you went overseas, you said?
Yeah. It was the fight was awesome. The few days leading up to it was like
shit,
dude. Like, you know, the 7-hour flight with the 5-hour change. So you leave at 7:00 at night and you arrive there at 7:00 in the morning.
How far ahead of time do you try to get over there?
They plan us to be out there if it's a Saturday fight Tuesday. I could have paid, you know, but I didn't have the fucking money to do it. To fly out earlier. You know, it's like, I don't know if it was the hotel or what, but the beds were tiny. Excuse me. There were 3 of us in the room. So it's like, and of course it's like
3 fighters.
No, no, it was, my coach and manager, he couldn't get his own room until later on. And, my wife, who was not my wife yet, my fiance, she flew out with us. So it's 3 of us in the room.
Quite the throuple.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so I'm trying to sleep on this bed with my wife that is like, you know, 2 feet wide. You know, my schedule was so messed up. I ended up making weight the day before weigh-ins, like, which is not.
Did they count that though?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You know, like I did a workout and it's like, holy shit, I'm 156 pounds. Like, what the fuck am I doing? So like, yeah, the week was terrible, you know, no sleep and all that shit. But went out and I fought a guy that was he was ranked, I think he was 2 in the world at that point at welterweight. This guy David Barron, he's a French dude. He was coming off a win over was it Sakara? Right? I don't know. Some Japanese dude, right? He fought him over in Japan. And the guy was like number 2 in the world, and this guy beat him, and so now he's number 2 in the world. And it was like, but then he was dropping down to lightweight. So it was like, it was a ballsy fight to take. But you know, I went out and I just fucking square peg round hole, and just you know, fucking wore him out. Choked him out in the third, and yeah, it was an awesome crowd, absolutely like phenomenal crowd out there, and
they just going batty the whole time.
Yeah, and you know, like fucking kind of changed my life. I got a bonus, right? Like I made 5 and 5 for my first UFC fight, and then I think I got
$5,000,
$5,000 and $5,000 for the win, and then I made a little bit on sponsorship, and then I got, I think, a $40,000 bonus, and it was like, holy fuck.
Yeah, that's big cash.
Yeah. And then my second fight in the UFC, so it was like, that was October, mid-October. Then I got married. I went on my honeymoon, and like I come back, I'm fat and happy. Friggin', you know, we went to Aruba for a bit, like get back like 2 days later. I went pheasant hunting, you know, and I was taking a nap. So Dan and I had gone pheasant hunting that morning, and then we went to the diner, and I probably ate 8,000 calories. So I was in a coma. I'm sleeping on the couch with my 2 dogs, and my manager starts buzzing my phone, and I'm like, fuck this. And I'm like, I'll call him later. And then it's like, calls me like 3 times, and I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, do you want to fight Matt Wyman next week? You know, and I was like, let me come in and train. Like, let me see what I can do. Because I trained like a couple of times.
Yeah, let's see how the gas tank's doing.
Yeah. So I go in and I just hammered, you know, 3 rounds, and I was like, all right, let's do it, you know? So yeah, it was on 8 days notice, and it was at Fort Bragg, the first fight for the troops, and went out and dominated him, for 3 rounds and was fucking exhausted. like there's like a portion of the Rogan, I think, was there, and he's like Jim's closing his eyes. Like I was like on his back and I'm controlling him. I'm just like, oh God, I'm so tired. Yeah, went
That's
after,
a total Joe comment.
Yeah. And then I won another bonus, and then I won a $30,000 bonus. So it's like I went from having like 2 dimes to rub together to
making real money.
Yeah, to like making nearly 6 figures that year, and it was like, holy shit.
What do they base the bonuses on?
Politics.
Okay, explain.
Well, sometimes there's politics involved. It's an unfortunate thing. Listen, I've made a lot of money in bonuses, and I'm super appreciative of it.
Who makes the decision?
There's like a handful of, Dana, the matchmakers, and I think one of the Mark Ratner used to help. I don't know if he still helps with it.
Is there a set criteria, or just sometimes it shows up and sometimes it doesn't?
So it was. It used to be knockout of the night, submission of the night, and then fight of the night.
Okay.
And I might have had some play in this. I don't know. I haven't actually asked anybody. I don't have the stones to. But at 162, when I fought Fabricio Camoes, and armbarred him in the first round with a very nice armbar, if I do say so myself. The best one that I've ever hit, like ever. Like I couldn't do it right
Textbook.
now if you were if you were allowing me to do it on you. I couldn't do it as well as I did it in that fight. And Ronda Rousey went out and armbarred Miesha Tate with a kind of sloppy armbar in the 3rd round.
Is this the one where Miesha let her arm get melted? Or was that a subsequent fight?
I think that was, but this is the 2nd time that Ronda had armbarred her. It was the 3rd round, and it was kind of it only worked because Miesha was tired. Like her leg, I didn't think was over her head or her neck. Like it was both, that leg was like under her head or something like that. They gave her it was a $75,000 bonus for submission of the night that time. And they gave it to her when she was making a couple mil to fight. And, I was making, I don't even know what I was making.
Not a couple mil.
Yeah, not a couple mil. Maybe a 10th of what she was making. There was a little blowback. I appreciate it. The fans got on, they were like, what the fuck? Why didn't this go to Jim? Mm-hmm. And then from that point on, then it became performance of the night bonuses. So they changed the criteria.
Broadened it sounds like.
Broadened it, yeah. So then it was like they could do whatever they wanted. But, like I said, it's not in the contract that they have to give that to us.
Yeah.
They throw it out there, and sometimes they're super generous with it. Like this last card, they gave there were 8 finishes on the card or something like that, and everyone that had a finish, they gave a bonus to, a $50,000 bonus, which is like...
No shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Fucking awesome. Yeah, it's like... It's cool. I would like to see... I would like the pay to be a little bit different, but yeah, like I said, I've made a lot of money with it because I just kind of fight as hard as I can fight until I can't fight anymore, and it works most of the time. And if it doesn't work, I usually take a pretty good beating that leads to a fight of the night. So, it's like
man.
So yeah, like I said, I'm appreciative of it. Like I would like to see something like that where finishes. It's like, hey, if you get a finish, you're getting a bonus, so that it's not, there's not like any picking because sometimes
without a set criteria, it can look like there's a lot of favoritism.
Yeah.
Or
Well, I mean, sometimes it seems like that, right? Like a perfect armbar, it's an okay armbar against somebody that person had already armbarred. A purple belt. A black belt armbarring a purple belt, or a black belt armbarring a 3rd degree black belt.
I don't make these decisions, Jim.
I'm just going to sit here and drink my cold brew.
At 39 of your fights in the UFC, which one stands out?
Joe Lauzon won. excuse me, throat noise. Yeah,
excited just thinking about it.
It was a weird one because like everything that kind of led up to it, right? Like, so I fought. That was 2012. I fought Nate Diaz in May, and I ended up like cherry bombing my fucking extensor muscle in the first round of that fight. I threw a knee as he stepped back, and I tried to like catch my weight and just exploded it.
Like high up in the hip?
No, in the calf. So like, then then he kicked the shit out of me. So I was like in a walking boot and stuff like that afterwards. You know, I went to like the podiatrist, and he's like, you know, we don't see this very often. He's like, usually it's like a 55-year-old woman that falls down some stairs. I'm like, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Like I'm a 29-year-old fucking professional athlete.
Yeah.
So I'm in a walking boot, and it was like 2 weeks later, something like that. I did a appearance through the UFC at Walter Reed, and Joe was there, and a couple other fighters were there, and like, so I'm like, still on crutches and shit, and fucking, and they're like, Jim, you know, do you want a wheelchair? I'm like, fuck you. Like,
that'd have been sweet if they
I'm not
gave you
fucking.
one.
They wanted me to have one because I was slowing everybody down. I'm like, I'm in fucking Walter Reed. I'm not sitting in a fucking wheelchair. And Joe's there, and he's like, I'll push you. And I was like, dude, I'm like, no, like it's not fucking happening. And like we had done some signings and stuff like that at some of the expos together, so we'd known each other for a while, and so you know, a couple months go by. And he was supposed to fight Gray Maynard at the end of the year card. And I think it was the week before Thanksgiving. I was actually, I was in the wood. I decided to like go bow hunting and then just stay overnight in the woods.
Unplanned? Just like, this is where I sleep now?
Well, I had some stuff with me, but like, I just wanted to do a solo overnighter and like.
In what state?
New Jersey. As an Eastern hunter, it's like it doesn't happen, right? So yeah. I was like, I just want to do it, and like because I've always enjoyed, that
the outdoors
and the survivalist type stuff and camping and shit like that. So
yeah, I'm sure in a real survival situation.
Yeah, totally. So I was actually laying next to
coverage.
I was eating ramen soup and laying next to a long log fire with my tarp teepee and my shit. And my manager calls me up and he's like, hey, do you want to fight Lauzon and at the end of the year, in like 6 weeks? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So that's always my response, basically. So I remember I was 188 pounds or something like that. Like the next day when I got back, like I was just about the heaviest I'd ever been.
Yeah.
And had like 5 weeks to get ready.
Is that reasonable to lose? Because you fought at 155, right?
Yeah, it worked. Like I got down to about 171, 172
before you started the cut.
Yeah, going into fight week, and then and then made the cut. But it was a weird thing too. So like I had my corner, and my striking coach at the time was a little bit of a head case. He didn't like getting on planes, a little bit of anxiety. So he ended up like not wanting to come out. My brother, something happened. He couldn't come out. So my dad and my strength and conditioning coach, he ended up coming out and cornering me, and I had my other coach and coach manager. Like I flew out before everybody. So like I was by myself. I think it was the day after Christmas. So it was just really like, it felt different in Vegas compared to every other time I'd been there.
Yeah.
It was just like really like kind of laid back, and we were the co-main event, and like went out there, and I had in the time, so I'd fucked my ankle up. So it bothered me. I had dealt with some scar tissue in it. It bothered me to like point my toes. So like being on the mat and grappling actually hurt it worse than hitting pads and stuff. So I was hitting a lot of pads, and I was doing a lot of elbow sparring in the months leading up to it. And
Is elbow sparring what it sounds like? You're using your elbows instead of your hands?
Yeah, but you have to do it in a very like safe manner. Like it has to be one person goes while the other person is kind of the moving dummy. So with my coach, he was kind of letting me work, and I'm not like, you know, beating the shit out of him.
Yeah.
But you know, letting me flow, because like you're the product of the last couple weeks. You know, like that's the way it is, and you know, because you fall to the level you're training, and I had been doing a lot of that, so those fucking elbows came out in the fight, and it was awesome. And it's really hard to do that type of sparring, especially if like both guys are trying to get prepared for a fight, because one guy has to just suck it up and be the dummy.
Yeah.
So like I haven't really fallen into a situation where it's been easy to do that a lot since then. But I elbowed the fucking piss out of him. And by piss, I mean blood. I think he got 40 stitches after that fight, and I hit him a few times, and then I had like a standing arm triangle side choke, and I'm squeezing, and the blood shooting out of the top of his head, and we're against the cage, and it went like over the apron and to the first row. And there was some actor sitting there, and he gets blood all over his shirt or his suit. And the fucked up part is that that's where my kids sat when they came to the fight. Same exact like orientation to the cage.
Yep.
Is where I've sprayed other people's blood, which would have been fucking awesome. But yeah, like we go out and we're beating the hell out of each other, and you know, like I remember in the second round, so his wrap was coming undone out of his glove. And so the ref calls timeout, and like this is a guy that I like. I'm a fan of his, and I'm like, hey, dude, great fucking fight. I'm like, pound fists, you know. And it's like I don't have to hate somebody to fucking go out and, you know, beat him up, and elbow him. Like it's part of the game. Like,
yeah.
I mean, shit. If I could have gotten paid to spar my brother, sometimes we could have made a lot of fucking money.
Sounds like you guys did a lot of free fighting.
Yeah. But yeah, like we went and you know, that fight, like if I'm going to be remembered for anything, I hope it's the last like minute of that fight, because I won. Like at that point I'd won. I could have moved away. I could have backed away. I could have, you know, just let
Doesn't
time.
sound like your style.
Oh no,
Jim.
It's not my style at all, you know? And like I came pressing in, and he attempted to try to do the scissor heel hook on me. And like I pushed him off, because we both could fucking barely stand at that point. I pushed him off, and I came back in, knowing like we had drilled it. We had drilled a defense for it, because we knew that he was going to try to throw that up there. But there was still time on the clock, so I'm still trying to punch a hole in his head, you know? So I kept going forward, and he ends up throwing up a heel hook, and I defend, and then he rolls to a guillotine that wasn't there. People like to think that it was there. But yeah, so it was like there was the drama of, you know, him putting me in some submissions towards the end of the fight. And there's the picture of it where I'm like basically laying on him like, fuck. Like, I hate that picture, because it's like, it seems so disrespectful to me to like that I was like laying on him. But yeah, that was it was pretty intense. I actually you'll get it. I smacked my coach after that fight. Like he got in my face. Like I'm sitting against the cage, and he's like said something, because I took him down in the second round, because I was fucking tired. I only had a few weeks to train for the fight. So he like gets in my face, and it's like I was like, don't ever talk to me like that fucking again, man. Like I was so like out of it too. It took me 3 showers to get like all the blood out of my ears and stuff.
No shit.
Yeah, and it was all his. He didn't cut me. And yeah, and like it was in between rounds of that fight was like so I get the tunnel vision. All it is me and him. That minute in between is like, you know, like going berserk, and then
quiet.
Yep, everything quiets back down, and it's time to work. And yeah, it was you know, it's like one of those things. It's like it was the coolest fight to be a part of, because of what we did. But it's like, is that my best performance? No, it's not my fucking best performance. My best performance is I fucking steamroll somebody and get paid and,
Yeah.
you know,
Move on with your
yeah,
day.
exactly. Like assert my dominance and
What happens after a fight? Like, what do you guys do after you exit the octagon?
we go back, we get checked out by the doctors.
Yeah.
You know, if you need stitches, sometimes they'll do it there. Sometimes they send you to the hospital. If you need a, you know, CT or MRI, they'll send you there.
But other than that, it's like you shower and change out and you're
Yeah,
doing whatever you want to do, or
for the most part, yeah. Like, so back in those days, like they did a little bit differently. They would have a group press conference afterwards, and you know, I mean, one of the coolest things about like that fight and like mine and Joe's like relationship is that we sat at the press conference next to one another, and that's never fucking happened. Like no other guys that just went out and beat the shit out of each other for 15 minutes have sat next to one another at the press conference. You know, and it was a hell of a fight. And like, so we would do that, you know, you'd have that big one. Now they just run you through, you do the media, and then you can get
and you're
the hell
off
out
and
of it.
running.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more common that the fighters have respect for each other, or it's something like to use a recent example, the Covington and Masvidal? They don't seem to like each other very much.
They don't. You know, and they have personal history. So I kind of,
They used to be training partners, right?
Yeah. And like best buddies too. I think that a majority of the time, well, I know that a majority of the time it's respectful.
They're just, both parties are out there doing the job.
Doing the
Obviously,
job,
the
and-
goal is to smash the other person, but
Yeah.
it's
and
not
like,
vindictive in nature.
No. And there are some guys that have to like not like somebody.
To be able to fight them,
yeah,
you mean?
Yeah. I'm not that way. But like, that's what kind of bugs me about some of the, like cause fighting's kind of become half
Shit
talk.
talking.
Yeah. And half what's actually goes on in the octagon. Which is kind of annoying because like anybody can talk shit. And like we used to do the sit down interviews in the back, and they'd run it on the big screen in between fights, you know, before you walk out there, and you couldn't leave until you said enough like mean shit, right? It was the fucking.
You had to meet your requirement of shit talk.
Yeah, star that one. You know, like, so you learn the thing the first time you go in there and like, oh yeah, you know, he's a really good grappler. I'm looking forward to this fight. Like, no, come on. And like, he's a fucking piece of shit. I'm going to choke him out. Yep, star that one. So then it's like you learn the game, and then everybody sounds the same.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, this is stupid.
Very templated.
Yeah. So a lot of the talk is a vast majority of the talk, I should say, is just manufactured shit. And that's why, like, every time, oh, look, these guys, they just traded for 15 minutes or 25 minutes and now they've got respect for each other. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that show that they put on beforehand was a show. And, you know, like some guys can cut a good promo. Like Sonnen was always good at like the pro wrestling promo, right? But then like a lot of it, I mean, Connor said some stuff that was pretty witty.
I was going to say, who's the best shit talker in the game?
I mean, honestly, I always kind of liked Bisping because like, like when he, like that's, some people, he's a love him or hate him, right?
Yeah, it seems to be that
And
way.
I think he's just him. Like, he's not putting anything on. It's not fake. He's just a wise ass. And if somebody, you know, tries to push his buttons, well, he's coming right back. And like when he fought Dan, fucking super respectful. I mean, the guy's fucking awesome. Like I'm a big fan of his. But like, that's just him. That's not you know, maybe Connor has some writers. You know?
It's not a facade. It's not a character.
Yeah,
actually.
he's just a wise ass.
Yeah.
And I have more appreciation for that than, you know, the cutting the like the Covington, like his shtick. Like, I'm not a fan of the thing that he does. I'm a fan of him as a fighter. Like, he is a hell of a fighter.
You're not
like,
a fan of the character that he plays?
I'm not a fan of the character.
Yeah.
I think it's and I'm not a fan of the other characters that get played too. You know, Cejudo's or Connor's. Like, Connor plays a character too.
Yeah.
Because like I understand, and as I've gotten older, like we are entertainers, and I do acknowledge that. But I don't know, just like I said, anybody can run their mouth. Like, and yes, if you can run your mouth and you can back it up in the octagon, then great. But yeah, I never liked it. And like, cause it always felt fake to me. Like, man, like this guy's busting his ass just like I am.
Yeah.
Like,
you guys are both professionals.
Yeah. Like he's spending time away from his kids just like I am. He's grinding and feeling like shit and like still doing it. And, you know, dealing with injuries, dealing with illnesses. Like, I've got a ton of respect for him. So why am I going to like talk shit? Now, are there guys that I don't like? Yes. There are a few that like...
That's just human nature, though.
Yeah. Like, I just don't like Kenny Florian. Like...
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I never liked him. Never liked that fucking guy.
Did he personally do something to you?
No. He just, I don't know. Whatever. I don't want to talk about it.
Some people like chocolate ice cream, some like vanilla.
It's true.
It's fine. You don't have to justify it.
Well,
You're like a mint chip kind of guy.
When you're trying to win a world title just by getting a fucking doctor stoppage for a cut, that fucking, like, that's, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. Like, that's when he's fighting Sean Shirk, that's all he was trying to do is cut him just to get the doctor to stop it. And like, I get it. I've won by doctor stoppage, and it sucked.
Yeah,
it sucked because it was not as clear and concise and dominant as I wanted it to be. It's somebody else's opinion, and I don't want anybody's. It's between me and you. You know, like, like if you go unconscious or you tap or this or that, like, that's what I want. No, I don't want the three judges, or I don't want the doctor to say that you can't fight with me anymore, because I want you to decide that you can't fight with me anymore, you know? But that's the tip of the iceberg.
Who's the hardest hitter you fought?
I mean, Melvin Gillard hit friggin' really hard. Yeah. Anthony Pettis, he hit me with like an overhand on the top of the head, and it was like, holy shit. Like, you know, and I think that when he was fighting me, he was trying to not commit as much to his strikes, because he didn't want to get taken down. But yeah, he hit pretty fucking hard. Like everybody, like if you let it get in there, it hurts.
I just feel like some have got better technique and hands than others.
I mean, the only time that I've ever been knocked down, including training with a body shot, was against Don Cerrone. We knew going into the fight, we were preparing for it, that he's going to throw knees up the center. And like, of course, fucking, you know me, round peg or square peg, round hole. I want to punch him in the face. So I knew that I should be working to the side, and I just overcommitted down the center, throwing an overhand. And he hit me hard enough in the chest to bruise my spleen. So then, like,
does that just feel like you're dying?
Oh, just knocked the wind out of me. And like, then like, the idea is when you're striking, you're supposed to kind of be flexed, like hard belly.
Yeah.
Once you get hurt there, it's impossible. So then he started throwing the snap kick, and they were just sinking in, and like every one of them was just sinking in. Like, he knocked the wind out of me like 6 times in the first round.
Oh fuck!
And then it was horrible. And then a few more before he kicked me in the head in the second. And in the second round, he throws one, and it was like, I've never been stabbed before, but I imagine that it's what it would feel like. Like it just sank completely in there and knocked me down. And the ref was like, he called it. He's like, a low blow. And like, I can't fucking breathe. And I'm like, Dan, it was good. It was good. Like, cause I'm not fucking taking, that's not me. Other people can do it. I'm not taking it, you know? So I'm telling the ref that it's a legal strike. He's like, "Can you continue?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Fucking stand my fucking ass up like that. Oh, that was a bad one. And then I knew. Then my hands were like here, and then he kicked me in the side of the head.
How'd that feel?
I didn't feel that. You know, like you get knocked out, you don't feel it. Yeah, but that fucking kick, you know. And I talked to Dan after that, and he's like, the reason I called it a low blow is it sounded like, you know, he hit something hard. And I was like,
cup.
I was like, yeah, that was my pelvis. Like,
do you just piss blood after that?
I didn't for that one. I have in the past, but usually it's from like, you know, punches to the kidneys and shit.
Good God. So in your fighting career, how and when did you get Lyme?
I got bit in 2013, probably like late May, early June. I didn't know. It actually took me a while to probably like 2018, 19 to figure it out, like when I was bit. So the initial symptoms of Lyme are a lot of times like flu-like. So I had a period there where I had like severe nausea to the point where like taking the garbage out. I had 2 kids in diapers at that point. So like I'd be taking the garbage out, fucking dry heaving. If I took a swig of my coffee in the morning and I smelled it a little too strong, I would fucking gag.
What did you think that was?
I didn't know. I thought the nausea was from because my niece had gotten like rotavirus or something like that.
Okay.
So I thought it was from that. And then right after that, that was for like a week or so. And then I had a series of migraines, and I don't really get headaches, let alone migraines. I had like, you know, light sensitivity, kind of a vertigo-ish, not like dizzy, but like felt like off balance. Mm-hmm. I got like, I think it was like 7 and 10 days or something like that. So I went to an ENT and a neurologist and got checked out. They fucking ran a battery of tests. They tested me for Lyme. I test negative. Still to this day, I test negative.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
About 50% of people test negative for Lyme. It's a tricky little bitch.
While having it.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And so like the doctor's like, listen, like we can't really find anything that's causing the migraines. So like, let's just see how things go, you know? Yeah. So that was 2013. And like over the course of a few years, like certain things started to come up. I was getting a lot of neuropathy. If I sat on the floor, my legs would go numb pretty quickly, like sitting on the floor playing with the kids. Like my legs would fall asleep.
And you're obviously still fighting during this time too.
Yeah, joint pain. At some point, I started going up and down stairs, or I started going downstairs sideways because it was easier on my knees. And when I'm going upstairs, I'm like pulling myself up with the handrail. Like I could be middle of training and like go to get up, and I gotta post my hands on my knees like an old man. And I'm, this was like 2015-ish, I guess, is when I really started to kind of come through. I'm fucking 32 years old. And like, yeah, it started to like just get worse, harder and harder to train. And one of my favorite symptoms, just because I like to say it, is I would get morning stiffness.
Are you sure that's a symptom of Lyme disease?
Which is different than morning wood. All right.
How so?
It is a symptom of rheumatoid arthritis where you wake up and everything hurts and you can't fucking
That is
move.
not what I thought you were talking about.
Yeah. That's why I like it. Because everybody's like, oh, he's talking about his boner.
Yeah, you just mean that your joints are stiff in the morning. Yeah.
And like
you sold that well.
I WebMD'd it, and it's like, wake up 45 minutes earlier and take an Advil. And I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah, you're not 70.
Yeah, like what the fuck? So yeah, it was hard. Like I was training for UFC 196 in the beginning of 2016, March 2016, and like I couldn't train. Like I'd get a few sessions on the treadmill, run 5 miles on the treadmill. Like it was hit or miss going to grappling or sparring, this and that. Like some days I just couldn't get out of fucking bed. And I thought like the joint pain and the neuropathy, it's like, well, my neck's fucked up, you know, like of course.
Yeah.
You know, my brother had neck surgery in 2013, had a fusion. And I, in the most unspectacular injury ever, fucked mine up in 2014. And I felt like everything was kind of because I had been a fighter for, you know, a decade.
Yeah, the wear and tear.
And I went to my doctor for my pre-fight physical, you know, and he's like, "Is there anything else going on?" You know, like, 'cause we did all that stuff. He's like, "Anything else going on?" You know, like, I'm not going to put it in there. Like, well, yeah. So, you know, I started telling him.
Funny you should ask.
Funny you should ask it. Like brain fog. Like I used to. Fuck, man. Like, so Lyme can mimic like Alzheimer's. So, I mean, I would go down in my basement, you know, my cave to like do shit. I had all my fucking brewing and archery stuff and like this and that, you know, it's like where I'd fucking tinkered and played and shit. And it's like, oh, I gotta clean up. And I'd walk down there and I'd literally just like get overwhelmed right away and just like sit there for 45 minutes, just stand there and not know what to do. And just like lose time. Right.
Were you sharing any of this with your wife?
Not really. I should have been. Not as much as I was to a degree, but
yeah, giving a little bit of insight.
Yeah, not fully. You know, and I feel like an asshole about that. Yeah, your nod says I should.
I understand why you didn't, especially with what your occupation was, and
you know, I did.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure what was going on, right? So like, I was gearing up for 196, and I was like, man, like, I'm gonna get through this fight, no matter how I have to, and I'm gonna ask them to fight on UFC 200, and I'm gonna retire. And so I was at that physical, and I tell him about all this stuff, and he's like, I think you got Lyme disease. He's like, let's run some, you know, I had to get my pre-fight blood work done. So he's like, I'm going to write another script. It's like, get these other tests done. We'll test for Lyme and then some other things to kind of try to rule out some other shit. So like, I'm actually in Vegas. I think it was Thursday, maybe before the fight, Wednesday or Thursday before the fight. And he like calls me up. He's like, judging by your blood test, he's like, I'm pretty certain you got Lyme. He's like, when you get back, let's run a course of doxycycline. And he's like, if you have Lyme disease, you're going to feel a lot different very quickly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like, you know.
How was that fight though?
It was awful. That was the only fight that I've ever been able to see the crowd. Like I was so like loopy and like unfocused that like I could see everything.
Huh.
So like I get back on Sunday, you know, go to the pharmacy on Monday and get my doxycycline. It's like by the weekend, it's like things start to lift.
Wow.
Yeah. It took a while for the joint pain to go away. And like the neuropathy stuck around for a bit too. But like some of the brain fog, like, I mean, almost
cleared off.
Yeah. Almost immediately started to like clear off. And I you know, twitching and stuff like that. I mean, that went away pretty quickly.
Is that the main treatment for Lyme is doxy?
It is when you catch it quickly, right? Like, so if you get bit by a tick and you find the tick and remove it, and they're like, hey, you know, this is the deer tick, or they test it and they say that, you know, it's positive for Lyme.
Yeah.
They throw you on 3 weeks of doxy and it usually wipes it out.
Okay. Sounds like that was not your experience.
Yeah, no. Once it's they call it the fuck, I'm drawing a blank, the great imitator, because it can look like so many different things symptomatically. It hits everybody differently. The bacteria can cross the blood-brain barrier, which makes it even more fucked up. That's why it like fucks up your brain. The plaque that's associated with it is like exactly like friggin' Alzheimer's. It's a fucking little bitch.
And you have it for life, right?
Yeah, essentially. Like you can kind of get rid of it, you know, like, but it might come back. I might get, you know, a second wave of it. Who the fuck knows? But at least at this point, like I know I know what I'm fighting.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge fucking like.
Just thinking you're dying and not knowing why sounds worse than
yeah.
knowing, oh, hey, you got Lyme disease from a tick.
Yeah, dude. Like, because like
this is my end now. This is how I die.
Knowing the opponent, right? Knowing what it is, and even like I'm not a marathon guy. I'm a sprint guy. Like, let's fucking in and out. Let's get it done. You know, if you ain't first, you're last. Right?
It's very Ricky Bobby.
It is Ricky Bobby. Except in the bedroom.
Ricky Bobby.
But yeah, like when you're dealing with Lyme disease that went undiagnosed for so long, it's a fucking marathon. Like, and there needs to be a consistent change, and it's that little bit every day. Like, it's not going to be, oh, well, I took some oregano oil and it's gone. You know, like, no, like, you're going to fucking have to fight this shit, you know? And that was a huge thing that, like, at least I know what it is.
Yeah. At least for a mentality shift.
So it's like, I fought it, you know, I felt way better by UFC 200 in July. Went out, smashed one of my fucking heroes that when I started fighting, Takanori Gomi, who was the number one guy in the world when I started fighting, saw Dudley, yelled at him, you know, and then I fought Joe Lauzon again, 8 weeks later, had another fight of the night. And like this whole time, like I'm on doxycycline, taking, you know, two doses a day, shitting my fucking brains out. Like, that was probably the worst part, is like, it just eats your gut away. Like, it's that's why people don't like it, you know. And like,
you got to develop a routine and regimen.
Yeah.
Wet wipes.
Yep. Yeah, like, there were a lot of close calls in that first 6 months. Like some really close calls. For whatever reason, I think because it like nuked my stomach. So I took it for 6 months and I missed like one like morning dose.
Yeah.
Right. And then like I was telling my doc, I was like, you know, I feel really good, but I poop 5 times before noon. And he's like, okay, let's tone back on, you know, like we'll see if you beat it, you know, we'll see if you got it. So I went off of the doxy, and that was like September. And within, I think it was like 7 weeks, like I was working up for my fight against Thiago Alves in New York. And I remember it was like a couple days before the fight, and it was like my eye started twitching. I was like, you son of a bitch. like it's back, you know, like, you motherfucker. So I'm like, all right, me being me is like, we're gonna see if it's actually back. You know, I should have just jumped right back on the fucking doxy. Go through that fight, you know, win, and then it's like, I get the Dustin Poirier fight again in New York, which New York commission sucks, and I'm never fighting there again. But that's a aside. And like, so at that point, like, it came back and it started to beat me up again. And then I was like, well, maybe I didn't take the doxy like correctly, because you're not supposed to take any fucking vitamin or mineral 2 hours before or 2 hours after. So like, I'm like, dude, this is 4 times a day. Like, I couldn't take the doxy on an empty stomach because it would fuck my gut up.
That's the worst. Yeah.
I couldn't take it like right before bed, because I gave myself a little bit of an ulcer like twice, because I took it right before bed, and you lay down and then it
sits there.
Yeah, it sits there and fucks you up. So you got to take it and then sit up for like at least a half an hour. So I was having a really tough time like getting on that schedule, because I don't like to eat before I train. So I'm like, well, how the fuck am I going to take, you know, all these fucking pills and the doxy like twice in a day? Like, it didn't line up. So I was struggling with it for a couple weeks there, and in like early 2017, like, I was fucking banged up. Like, it came back and it kicked my ass even worse than it did, you know, it was a year prior. I remember like I came into to sparring one day, and like one of my guys was doing a roll-a-thon. So like nobody told me that everybody was going to get in their roles with him like throughout the day and night. So like nobody really showed up for sparring. So like I end up rolling with one of the black belts, little guy, for like 20, 25 minutes, and then I rolled with one of like the blue belts for a couple minutes. You would have thought I did the fucking worst training session of my life. Like I was
just wrecked,
fucking wrecked. And this was like, I don't know, a month before the fight, something like that.
Oof.
So like, and then, you know, as around the same time as, you know, going to the ATA and seeing Dudley and shit like that. And like, I got back on it and it was a really difficult like lead up to that fight, you know?
How long were you on it for the second bout?
2 years.
Holy cow.
Yep. Yeah. So my doc was like, hey, he's like, we've seen some research that says that people are on it for 2 years, beat it. So that was beginning of 2017. The last day that I took it was New Year's Eve of 2018, going into 2019.
Wow.
Because I got the stomach bug and I felt like I puked my asshole out of my mouth. So I was like, I'm never taking that shit again. And like, I really started to feel a difference early 2018. So I'd been on it for like 14 months or so, consistently, and had changed my diet. You know, like I changed it when I found out I had it. You know, it's an inflammatory disease. Like, you know, you eat anything stupid, like greasy shit. Yeah, you feel it. And that's exactly the way that I am now too. Like not airline food, but airport food fucks me up. Like, cause I end up eating stupid shit, and like I hate traveling and training. But like, yeah, really changed the diet up, was taking that consistently, was, you know, supplementing consistently and working out, like, and I was able to kind of beat it back. And, you know, it sucks because it's like there's a lot in, like, it took a while to kind of overcome it, like I said, into 17 or 18 rather. So like 15, 16, 17, there's a lot of spotty parts for me. Like,
yeah, I bet
that were not, you know, they were not placed into the long-term memory, which sucks because my son was born in 15. You know, and it's like, do I remember being at the hospital like when Sawyer was born? It's like, fuck, I don't really remember that too much. And there's a lot of other shit that just like kind of,
that's crazy,
kind of went away. But yeah, like that's like really cleaning up the diet, you know, and like, I mean, we got rid of like the processed shit, you know, and you know, like I think there have been a couple different things that kind of helped me through that, you know, like with the diet and shit. And it was like, one, like honestly, meeting Dudley, because like I went out to his place and you eating all this fucking delicious food that he's making. It's like just all real shit.
His murder food.
Yeah. Like, and it's like, wow, like this is fucking good.
He's a really good chef.
Yeah.
People would sleep on him.
Yeah.
Like cook wise, I would like to see somebody get a 1-star Michelin on a Traeger. I don't know if Dudley's the guy to do it, but that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. And like, so kind of, you know, following his shit and like, you know, learning from him and like really working on, like I said, eating a lot cleaner. And and that's kind of why I'm like coming out with the fucking cookbook is like food it's a fucking medicine, right? Like it's the fuel you put in your body. And we've gotten so far away from what we like should be eating because out of convenience. And like, it just fucking, I don't know, man. It's like I said, I feel it now. If I eat crummy, 100%, and that might be age, and that might be the Lyme, and that might be a myriad of different things. You know,
might be all of it.
Yeah. But I know for a fact when I'm, you know, when I'm eating good, like I feel a lot better. Man. I sleep better. I perform better in the gym. You know, and like yeah, it's not complicated. It just takes a little time. Like,
how'd you come up with the idea for a cookbook?
I kind of knew that like food was going to be part of something someday. My family had a restaurant very briefly, back in like 2003, 2004. And like, you know, like they say, location. We had a really shit location, you know, and it sucks because it's like, you look at what's going on with food and like, you know, Uber Eats and all that shit. It's like, that's essentially what we were. We didn't have delivery, but like it was pre-made fucking dinners and shit like that.
Yeah.
You know, we did lunch and stuff, but it's like real fucking food, like, and good food. My parents are, and my siblings as well they're better than me. Like I am the jack of all trades, I think. But I consider myself the worst cook in the family. I think I step up sometimes. You know, I'm a performer. So like when we have
You're
our
a game time player.
Yeah, when we have our competitions, I fuck them up. Because
you peak.
I do, because I'm obsessive about it sometimes. But yeah, like so I knew that I wanted it to be somewhere, you know. And it's like I love like I like brewing beer. I haven't brewed in like 2 years since we moved and shit. But like beer and wine and stuff, and like I love sharing it. I love sharing the food, and man, I don't want to work in a kitchen though. you know, like, and the, you know, the restaurant business, it's a pain in the ass.
Cutthroat.
Yeah. So it's like, well, how can I dip my toes into this the easiest way? And it's like, fucking cookbook, you know? So it's a whole bunch of awesome recipes of like really, we went kind of wild game on it just because I like it because you have the control.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I love sharing like venison with people and bear and all these things, like, because I shot it.
I'm not a huge fan of bear.
You got to have it done right.
The first
What kind of bear did you have? Like
black bear?
Yeah.
The guy made some Saskatoon sausage out of it.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah.
I could have it in that form. I don't know if I would want a bear steak.
No, you don't. Backstrap. My kids and my wife, well, 2 of my kids and my wife like bear more than they like venison backstraps.
Really?
Yep.
You're definitely cooking it differently than I am.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like every time that I've had black bear, it's been New Jersey black bear, and you know, we just raise them a little bit better. You know, they I don't know what it is. I think homemade, like if he made homemade sausages, sometimes homemade sausages, sausage is tough. Because like you have to, like, I'm not a big fan of like the grip and grins. I don't care if people do it. I have no real desire to do it.
Yeah.
Because once that animal is down, I look at it as a piece of meat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Well, am I going to spend fucking 15 minutes wiping blood off and doing this shit? Like, well, do I want to get sponsors and like, you know, do my shit? No, like I want to eat things.
Yeah.
So like, and again, I don't give a shit if people do it. Like it doesn't bother me at all.
It's amazing how many people it does bother.
Yeah.
You can get some hate for the old trophy photo, if you will. I've never really cared either way.
Yeah.
Either.
But yeah, like I'm obsessive with then the process, you know, and like I've learned a lot over the years. I mean, I remember like eating venison as a kid and being like,
a little gamey.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that good. Like I didn't really like it. And it's like, now granted, my tastes have changed. That's for shit sure. Like as a kid, I fucking broccoli, fuck you. I love broccoli now. Like asparagus, Brussels sprout, like fuck me.
All
like,
this stuff you would try to hide.
Yeah,
on your plate.
yeah. Like my palate is a lot different. I like the bitter a lot more. You know, I will eat sweets, but I sure as shit don't crave them anymore. But like, yeah, I try to be like as fucking clean and you know, not to like a fucking anal retentive part, but like, so I shot my bear what the hell year was that? 2020? Yeah, 2020. I hunted them in New Jersey. It was like 20 years that they had the fucking season. I never saw one during hunting season. Finally get this fucking like 200 pounder, if that, maybe soaking wet. Shot her at like 27, and like it was the October season, so it was archery, and like I called up my dad, called up my brother. I'm like, we got a little work to do, so like bring her back to the barn, skin her out, everything goes in the cooler. I bring it to the check station the next day because like we got it out of the woods at like 9, and the game warden's like, "Thank fucking God that you skinned it." I was like, "It's like 65 degrees. Are people leaving these things overnight?"
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, you wouldn't believe." He's like, "I've gone up to some of these things and I can't even put the tag in the ear because they smell so bad."
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck? Like, how do you do that? like you've got this thing with like 3 solid inches of fat around it that is just the best insulation ever.
Oh, man.
Just thinking about it gets me.
That's disgusting. Yeah, that's going to be a rugged journey.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like I try to be like super clean with it, like I used to split the hips because that's how I was taught to field dress a deer, and then it's like, man, there's so much fucking dirt getting in there now. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
So like now I take the time to do the dirty part, as clean as I can. Bring a smaller knife and
for the old butthole.
Yeah, for the old butthole, right? Like I tried one of those butt outs, the little tool that you that you cringe every time you use.
Yeah, you're like, I'm sorry. You're apologizing as you.
God, this must feel like shit.
Yeah, sorry, dead animal.
If you were alive, if you wanted to torture somebody,
seriously.
Yeah, and I never. Yeah, I like it. I learned a lot. That's one of the benefits I think of social media is that like I've learned a lot of shit too over the last couple of years with social media, and it's like, well,
you can use it as a great tool for education. I just
so much information.
Unfortunately, I think that most people don't.
Yeah.
What does Angel Jim's wife think of your fighting career? It's got to be hard for her caring about you, watching you step into the cage.
Yeah, I think it's she doesn't show it. She handles it pretty well. In
both victory and defeat?
Yeah, in victory and defeat. And she, I couldn't do what I do without her, like when we took that fucking jump off the cliff to be full-time fighters, like, I mean, I was kind of throwing it out there to her, like, hey, you might have to support my ass for a little bit, so it's, she's great. It can be hard. Like with the training schedule, and I mean, I try to do it all during the day when everybody's at school and shit, and and she's doing her thing. So,
do your kids have an interest in watching you fight?
They do, yeah. They like to watch the fights. They've been to one because I didn't want to like only bring the older two, so like stars kind of aligned in 2018, I think it was, or 19. It brought them all. I think it was 19. Brought them all to a fight. In Florida. My mother-in-law lives down there, so we had some extra help.
Yep.
It's a little disappointing, right? Just like my son, just like, stabs me in the heart. They know what fighting is. They've seen me fucking fight. They've watched it on TV. They've seen me train,
countless hours.
Yeah. Like, I go out, smash this kid. And we come back into the back, and the UFC they had so I'm like warming up for the fight, and they're like, hey, can we put your family on camera? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, can your wife and kids sit cage side? And I was like, that's not up to me. That's up to her.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. So they ended up rushing him down cage side. It was a second fight on the card early, in those same seats that I squirted Joe's blood the one time. I didn't even know they were there.
Yeah.
Like. The fight ends, I choke the kid out. The fight ends, I like yell, and then it's like corner of the eye. I see them, and I'm like, like, get those fuckers up here. You know, they wouldn't bring all 4 of them. You can only bring like 1 or 2 into the octagon, apparently. But yeah, they brought everybody into the back, and my son Wyatt's like, Dad, did you win? I'm like, what the fuck do you like?
Did you win?
Did I win? You're like, and he's not the baby. Like,
yeah,
you know, I mean, Sawyer was 4, I think.
So he was really paying attention.
Yeah, totally. Just like they were so excited that they were on TV. Like that was.
You got to see it through their eyes.
Yeah, I know.
They're like, Dad's just Dad, but now I'm on TV.
Yeah. So the next one, hopefully, I'm looking for like International Fight Week in July, and it'll be 40, so I want to get them there. You know,
how many past 40 do you think you'll do?
Well, I threw it out there that I wanted to get to UFC 300. Now, it all depends on how I pace myself, and who the fuck knows, because like, whether it's a training session or shoveling the snow, I could do something and fuck myself up. And,
this is very true.
You know, and that be that. So who knows? I'm not really focused on that. Like I'm playing it ear, you know, by ear, one at a time. We'll see what the future holds. You know, I know that I got 40, you know, coming up hopefully soon over the summer. Early summer would be better. Yeah, like should be able to get, you know, 41 by the end of the year too. So, I mean, the thing is, that's how I pay the bills. So
yeah,
yeah, it's nice to have the opportunity to make money.
Did your wife ever talk to you about stopping?
Occasionally, I don't know. It's a hard one because like the kids are like, you're fighting for another 10 years. I'm like, yeah, fuck you.
Thank you for the enthusiasm.
Yeah,
Our dad's body doesn't feel like that.
It, yeah. Do you not want me to make it to your wedding? Like, yeah. We've talked about it. Her problem is that, and I love you, babe, if you're listening. She doesn't have a vision of what's next, and I'm trying to figure out what's next. So it's like with her, anything that takes away from fighting at the moment is just playtime.
Yep.
Where it's like, it's not playtime. It's I'm
You're
throwing darts to the fucking wall.
Yeah, you're
you
looking
know?
at the next.
So we need to communicate a little better on like the plan. So yeah, we'll see what's next, but we have talked about it, and she, you know, she doesn't like that I beat myself up, you know.
It's got to be, I mean, especially long term and seeing the volume that you've done, you know, I mean, watching somebody that you care about, regardless of fighting or something else. I mean, I'm sure spouses of people who ride motorcycles professionally probably have a level of anxiety and trepidation associated with that as well.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, like that's, she likes being there more than she doesn't like, you know, being there. So it's been tough for her the last like 2 years, cause she came to my fight in February of 2020. And because of, you know, the lockdowns, and now like some cards are like super public and some cards aren't. I haven't fought on one of the big cards yet.
Yeah.
Since the lockdowns. So she hasn't really been able to come. So, and I know that fucking, that eats on her a little bit. She wants to be there. So, cause that like I missed one of Dan's fights, and it was because my daughter was going to be born like the next day. So, yeah, it was, that was hard as shit. Yeah. You know, watching it on TV, and I think the worst part was listening to the other people in the room talk about like what he should do.
Well, I'm sure they
it's
are
like,
experts in it.
shut the fuck up. Like, that is a stupid idea. It's a good thing he can't hear you, Dad.
Oh man, good Lord. Yeah, that's a tough crowd for sure.
Yeah.
You and your brother square off. Who wins?
Most of the time he wins.
Do you guys still beat the shit out of each other?
No. After he had his neck surgery, he took like 2 years off. He tried to come back. He re-injured it like 3 weeks out from the fight. You know, he was having like full blown like numbness down his right arm and shit. He had a fusion. I forget what joint, but like the other one, the one below it was fucked up too, and luckily they didn't have to fuse it. So he hasn't. He came back and he did a grappling match after that fight, 2017 maybe. But like since then he kind of just stepped away and he's doing his own thing. So
yeah. How quickly were you able to pick up jiu-jitsu with your wrestling background?
Pretty quickly. Because
there's some similarities and also some huge differences.
Yeah,
obviously.
Like I think it's because I wasn't a great wrestler. Like I was a good wrestler, but not a great wrestler. And I think to be a great wrestler, sometimes the ego comes in, and then like you get on the jiu-jitsu mat, and I want to just wrestle this guy. I want to out wrestle him. Or it's like, no, man, I want to fucking make you quit. like there is nothing that gives me more pleasure than fucking choking somebody. Like the guillotine, and you get that little gag, and they're like,
oh, you hear, yeah,
and then they, it's like, like, people
are definitely not going to understand our laughter at that.
No, yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy the submissions because it's like in wrestling, I wanted to pin everybody, and that's the only goal I had on the mat. It was not to beat them by points; it was to pin them.
Yeah.
And like so with jiu-jitsu, it's like it gives me that option. That's like my goal is not to just positionally dominate.
You could if you wanted, but then there's simulated murder.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to think that they could survive. I want you to be like, fuck, he would have killed me. Like, and that's
pretty much what you're doing.
I know it's not necessarily normal, but I'm a fucking butterfly, bro. I don't need to be normal.
So, whenever you retire at some point, UFC 600.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll stay active in grappling or jiu-jitsu? Is it beneficial enough to your life, or do you think you'll actually just completely move in a different direction?
I think I will. I think I'll keep up with grappling. I think it's going to be easier for me to keep up with like striking for whatever reason. I feel like I'm dealing with a lot more injuries these days than I dealt with in the past. And it's so much easier for me to hit the pads. Because
just less wear and tear on your body.
Yeah, because it's like, my guy's sitting there holding pads. He's not really giving his opinion to me, where it's like one of my biggest issues is my feet and my toes. And it's like stupid shit, like I'll go to step and my big toe will decide not to pick up. And then it's like, you step on it and it's like, hear a crunch and like, fuck. Like now I'm going to be limping for a couple weeks.
It's totally normal.
And then it's going to go knee, hip, back, and I'm going to be all fucking thrown out.
Technical term is cattywampus.
Yeah. So that's the only issue. I think I'm going to have to roll, more controlled, and maybe take the normal classes as opposed to like the grappling, for MMA and shit like that. But I love it, and I'll never, like, at this point I can't afford to like get away from it, right? At least like there has to be some type of like physical fitness, because like, and particularly like lifting and shit, because I think if I lose too much strength in my back, then it's just going to be completely fucked.
I don't think, even if I was like, my body didn't have any mileage on it, which it has far more mileage on it than I would like, I think emotionally and mentally I would fall apart without a physical challenge.
Yeah.
I'll turn 45 this year. My illusions of being able to give the sticks to the 18 to 20-year-old fuckboys. It's like, I want to, but at some point it's like, and the beauty is, we were talking about this when we were walking over to get a coffee. I think jiu-jitsu can be for everybody. Pick a good mat culture and a training partner. And if you're starting when you're 60, like expectation management. If you're starting in your 40s, expectation management, or 30s or 20s or whatever it may be. But I have to have something challenging to do. Otherwise, my mind will literally come unwound.
Yeah.
In the physical aspect, I want to be as capable as long as possible, but Yeah, thankfully I'm at least learning a little bit so I can,
Yeah.
control the dynamic a
Yeah.
little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
that's maybe the best you could hope for in our elderly statesman careers.
Like one of the reasons that like I didn't only start training just to fight. Like I'm a little shit, man. Like
You're not that little. You're, like I said,
I'm
average height for a woman.
Like 170-ish pound, like I used to be about 20 pounds heavier, but like, 170, 175, 5'8". Like I also like the ability to be able to defend myself. Like that is a reason why I train. And like, like with the med thing yesterday too, it's like, I fucking love hearing that shit.
Yeah.
Because it's not for me. I don't go to bars and get fucking drunk. I don't.
Why would you fight in a bar when you can get paid
Get
fighting?
paid to it, right? Like I don't go those places where I'm gonna get into a fight.
Yeah.
But sometimes that shit finds you, and
The world will find you.
Yeah, and the thing is like my family is almost always with me.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, like I want to be able to fuck somebody up as long as I can. For my kids,
Yeah.
So like, and then there's like I want to hike around the mountains and shoot shit too, and like being in shape is beneficial.
Yeah.
With that, but like being able to defend yourself. Like my dad is a cartoon character. He was 6'4" before he like squished himself a bit. 6'4", 240.
How tall is your mom?
5'1".
Okay. You came right in between the two. Fuck, Jim, you got the short end of the gene pool
like,
on that one.
Like it's funny because like stature wise, like I'm just a micro version of my dad. Like his torso is like teeny tiny, and he's got like a 37-inch inseam. And like I've got the same inseam as my brother Dan, and he's 6'1". He's 5 inches taller than me with the same inseam. And I'm like, because my torso is like,
you're a gorilla,
yay big, My dad was always like the biggest, baddest motherfucker, like he's fucking batshit crazy these days. At 65 years old, we try not to talk like geopolitical shit, because he's a fucking lunatic. But I love him to death. But like, I've seen my dad do fucking crazy shit, like carry 800-pound beams on his shoulders. Like when we would frame houses, the fucking builder would never backfill, and so we'd be able to dump the main beams that go in the on the first floor into the foundation, and his fucking ass would cinch his fucking tool belt as tight as he could, and he's tall enough that his shoulder would just hit the fucking beam perfectly, and he'd hoist that shit up and walk it over to the other side where it needed to be. And like, I've also seen him almost die on too many occasions. Some stupid shit, accidents and fucked up shit, and hitting a head that would turn most people's brains to mush. And he's like, I'm all right. Like, so him being who he is, and this like fucking just, I shared a picture of him with the wrestling team that I was on when I was like JV. I was like 5 years old or something like that. And he looks like Mr. Incredible from the fucking cartoon.
Incredibles.
Yeah. Like just his head is as big as everybody's fucking chest. The fucked up part is my head is just as big around as his. I must look like a lollipop, like, because I'll take fucking big dudes' hats and I'll plop them on my head, and sometimes it'll be fucking tight, or I'll take my hat and put it on their head and it'll wiggle around, like 6'4", 260 guys, like. But yeah, my dad is like, he's got Homer Simpsonitis, could fucking, yeah, like he's taken too many shots to the head, and I think that might have been what has created the craziness. But yeah. So being the guy that could beat up the dad that could beat up all the other dads is like, that's high on my list.
Yeah.
And then like having a mustache and like driving a big truck. Like,
I can only do 2 of those 3.
Yeah.
What kind of truck do you have?
I have a Ram 2500.
God, it's pathetic.
It is, isn't it?
I have to Google that later.
I love it.
I'm a Ford guy.
Yeah.
The F-350's treated me well.
Yeah.
Then I have an F-150. Slightly different, but. Closing thoughts from Jim Miller. Because we're still going to do a Q&A, but we've been at this for 2.5 some hours. What do you want people to know that they don't know? Other than you're below the average height of a man.
Yeah.
But have an abnormally large head.
Yeah.
There's some questions coming up. This will actually come up. This episode will come out after the Q&A, but there's some questions about people asking about your advice in the MMA world. So I'll leave that for that. But what do you think? What would you want people to know about Jim Miller that they traditionally don't know? And then also, of course, where can they find you and buy your cookbook? Which I'm going to give a 1-star review without reading.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. It's, I mean, you still have to do your part with the recipe. I don't know. I consider myself a pretty open book. Like I kind of dove into the media, social media shit. Like I didn't want to do it. And it's like,
you kind of have to for what you do.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, well, might as well show people who I am. And I pretty much do, like obviously I'm not telling them about all the bullshit because that's what social media is. It's all the good shit and none of the bullshit. I mean, occasionally I'll rant about stupid stuff, but, yeah, I don't know. Like there's nothing, I don't think there's anything people need to know about me that they don't already know, except I have pooped my pants as an adult.
My theory is you actually haven't lived as an adult until you've at least shit your pants one time.
Yeah.
That could be through alcohol consumption, which I'm not recommending.
Bingo.
It could be through...
and 2 dozen clamps. Bad mix.
That could be through dioxycycline. It could be, but live dangerously. Live on the edge.
Yeah.
Find the edge and just step just back from it.
Because if you say that you haven't, you're fucking lying.
Somebody was talking about skiing the other day. They're like, I feel like I get to this point where speed and control are fighting. I'm like, yes, that's where you should live.
Yeah, no, I like about me, I don't know. It's
you do seem to be pretty open about who you are. It's not like you're putting on a persona. You're just you.
Yeah, I try to be. And like, yeah, like I could. Like I could shut, you could shut the social media shit off and like, I'd be kind of cool with it.
Like, I feel like your life would not change at all, which I think is a good indication that you're living your true life.
Like the beginning of the lockdowns was fucking awesome to me because like I got to, hang out with my family and we really like, you're going to the store once every 2 weeks. So it was like planning meals and this and like, I don't know. It was fun. But on the flip side, it's like there's a lot of cool people that I know throughout the country and shit, and that I fucking love. Like, so there's that aspect of it that I wouldn't want to give up. But I don't know.
Where can people find your cookbook?
They can find my cookbook at thefighterscookbook.com. It's an SEO dream right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not just some recipes. It's also a story about how I used cooking and food to fight back against Lyme disease and kind of save my career and my life.
Yeah.
Because like real food is important. Like we touched on it before. Like the shit that we eat out of convenience. I can't stand it. I can't stand folding sometimes and doing it. Obviously I do, and
as do I.
But like my big hang up lately is like this fake meat shit. Like fuck that. Like I'll never.
Rob Wolf, the guy who was on the mats today with us, Dude, you got to pick his brain about that.
Yeah.
I mean, he understands shit at a molecular level. Yeah. Half the time he'll start going down a rabbit hole, and I'm just like, huh? Rob, do you have English words for that shit you're talking about? You're saying it's bad, right? Okay, cool. I'll just do that.
Yeah. There's something there. It's just, I don't get it. I don't get it. I understand that, like, you know, some people with the moral shit and fucking veganism and stuff like that.
We were talking about that at the car. Like, I understand the moral aspect of it, but I also think, and I have no judgment of anybody who wants to live their life however they want to, as long as it's not hurting and predatory on somebody else. I really don't give a shit. But I feel like on that particular issue, you have to have some intentional blind spots to kind of get to land where you think it's not harmful or less. Yeah. There's just pros and cons to everything. Yeah. Why can't we just be honest and have open conversations about it? So you're saying you don't have any, like, what are they called? Impossible burger recipes in the Fighter's Cookbook?
Yeah, the fuck I do. Fuck. I'd posted a video about it the other day. Like, I'd made these fucking burgers, and it's like I found them in the store. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I'd have to look. I actually took a picture of them. And it says, like, made from, you know, whole muscle and shit like that. When I cook a burger, I'm not super, like, temping and, you know, timing things. Like, it's just fucking...
You push on it, and if it gives you enough rebound, like, you're good to go.
And if the other stuff is ready, then it's ready.
Yeah.
Right? Every time I've cooked these burgers, which is half a dozen to a dozen times, they look exactly the fucking same. And I am not that guy that cooks my burgers exactly the same every time. And then I saw a commercial for them, and they looked exactly like they do in
the commercial.
And I was like, I got so grossed out. I was like, dude, I'm fucking never, ever buying these fucking shits again. You know, just a preformed fucking patty. Like, they're delicious. They're fucking and that's what everybody says about
they're
this
convenient.
This lab grown shit or these fucking impossible shit.
Have you ever tried one of the?
No, I will not.
I tried one by accident one time.
I will not. I won't do it.
I got one bite into the one that I was handed accidentally.
Yeah.
And I chewed and swallowed that bite, and then took a look at it. I was like, ugh, it actually just gave me the willies.
Like, you know,
it's not for me. And again, I don't have any judgment on people who want to go down that path. Not for me.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Rogan said about Bill Gates. Like, this guy's going to tell you what to fucking eat.
I believe he had a few things to say after saying that.
Like, listen, Bill Gates. I think he's a super villain, but that's, I think, for a different time. Cause, like,
we can add that to the Q&A session. I don't know enough about him to say yay or nay.
He lost out. There's an interview I'm talking about the antitrust. You know, around 2000, he lost out on hundreds of billions of dollars when he got broken up by the government, which is motive. He's had plenty of time. He's got resources. And if you hear him talk about it, it's like, meh, what's a couple $100 billion here or there? And it's like, like, what? Like, now you're buying up farmland. You're telling us what we should eat. You're fucking talking about all this other stuff. I'm not going to say it because you might get pulled from YouTube. But, like, fuck that guy.
All right. Like I said, I don't know enough about him.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Maybe we'll just end there. Cool. Ready for Q&A?